Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast, is available on all mainstream audio and video feeds. Find out how you can support the show by heading over to patreon.com/criticalframes.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast. We have played the Concord beta, and we have some thoughts, as do many in the industry. And then we're also going to get into the most disappointing PS3 exclusives. I bet you didn't expect that. Not the PS5, not the PS4, but the PS3. We'll go through what we're playing and all that typical stuff we have for you this week. We're excited to be together and talk about PlayStation. Joe, how are you doing? How has your week been?
I am well. I've just come off, it's Thursday now, so last weekend I went to the Lake District, out of service, out of signal, and went up a couple of mountains. Great Gable, I think it was called, Great Gable. Terrible climb, just mist and rain, and couldn't see anything when you got to the top, so it's like, why bother climbing the mountain? But we did it. And then we trudged through meters of bog just to find a place to camp. So all our feet were wet. But we had a great time. We had a great time. We camped next to a tarn, which is a lake in the Lake District.
The way you say tarn always makes it seem like the coolest thing ever.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. Like if I said tarn, it would just sound like I'm a country bumpkin. But when you say tarn, I feel like 18 kings have passed away on that land.
The craziest thing is like I have the most like mid geographically and like just quality wise accent of the UK. Like I am not Southern, I'm not posh, and I'm not Scottish, so I don't sound like, you know, a Highlander. I just kind of sound like I'm perfectly mid, but I appreciate the compliment nonetheless, Brian. But yeah, the what you call it was on recently, wasn't it? The PlayStation sale.
Yes, got a lot of good stuff on the PlayStation sale. Did you buy anything?
I picked up No Man's Sky.
Nice. What was it, $25?
No, it was like 15.
15, nice.
15 pounds, yeah. So
I actually, so we talked about this a little bit briefly in the week, and it got me interested how they're making money, and I still haven't figured out how, because they still sell the game, but there's no microtransactions.
Nope.
There's no DLC.
Yep.
And all of the updates are free. So I don't know how they're staying open as a studio. They have nothing to sell. I'm confused. I feel like I'm an idiot that I don't know.
I think they sold basically like all they needed to at launch. I really do.
Probably because they were like before No Man's Sky was announced, they were nothing.
Yes.
And then they got associated with PlayStation and sold millions of copies out of nowhere.
Yes.
But I guess that could potentially lead to more goodwill then, because that would make you think, wait, this company didn't just run away with all the overnight success. They decided to reinvest that money in building their name and continuing on. Like, if they did that, that's crazy, because like nobody is that good-hearted in this business.
So apparently they only have like 50 employees roughly.
Yeah,
which is like nothing. You know, that's like kind of a Pal World job, right? Like it's quite chill.
How many copies of No Man's Sky do you think have sold? Obviously, they're not all at the full price, but because it's kind of in that Minecraft pocket. Obviously, nowhere near the sales of Minecraft, but like it's that kind of game where it's just evergreen. You know,
I mean, surely it has to be around like 10 million at least. Like,
I would think it's over that by now with all the discounts and updates. And I mean, it's been 8 years.
Let me have a look. It sold 10 plus million units. Yeah, so it's just over. Well, this was 2 years ago. Sold just over 10 plus million units. That's
okay.
It's quite a lot.
So maybe they're moving towards 15. I don't know.
Yeah, potentially. And like the thing is because they keep dropping these big DLC packs, it's like it just makes it ever enticing for people to like buy that game.
You know what's crazy is like I've never really been super interested in No Man's Sky, but I've always told myself once it got back in the good graces, I've always told myself, I'm like, well, I'll buy it when the last update drops. Yeah. Well, then 4 more years pass by, and now today I'm like, okay, it doesn't seem like it's anywhere in sight. Like,
yes,
if I do truly pick it up once the updates are done, if that even ever happens, because like Minecraft's not done being updated.
No,
so maybe you just buy the game. I don't know. Like, it's tough for me because it's hard for me to get invested in something that's not story based. But at the same time, I did give 13-hour game sessions up to Minecraft the first time I played it, because I was like, this is dope.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm gonna build
100%.
a fortress and I'm going to make my house big enough to house 89 people, even though I'm the only character in this game.
Dude, if you go and like look at the amount of updates, like big content updates that No Man's Sky's had, it's crazy. There's just tiles of each one just listed, like, and they're on version 5.0 now, which is wild. Like,
it's a completely different game. You basically, I mean, it's not even being cheeky. You bought the beta when you bought the game at launch.
Oh yeah, you bought early access.
You might have bought the alpha. You might have bought the alpha.
Dude, I bought it at launch. I pre-ordered it. That was the game. Pissed. Yeah, that was the game where I realized like I need to stop trusting developers that I don't know. That was like, I feel like everyone has a come to Jesus moment when it comes to pre-orders. Yeah. And that was mine.
I mean, I think about this, like Sean Murray was on the Game Awards. That's where he announced the game. Everyone loved him, thought the game looked amazing. Then the game comes out. He's one of the most hated people in the gaming industry. You don't see him for years. And then just last year, he's back on stage with Jeff Keighley again. You can almost picture like an email thread from them where it's like Jeff Keighley's like, hey, it turns out you're finally good again. So come on the show. It only took like 7 years, but you know.
Yeah, he went on like Stephen Colbert, right? Like that was wild.
He? I don't remember.
Yeah, okay. He went on like the Late Show with Stephen Colbert or something. It was just like, what the fuck, just spinning his bullshito. But
he basically their game was a viral tweet. That's what happened. Yeah, like they're in the gaming development world, they went viral, and like you said, like with their original ambitions, they probably didn't even need to sell 1 million to be like a success.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've sold well over 10 million and they just keep updating, you know, so
the writing was on the wall as well, because they basically made nothing before that. Like they made a couple of like mobile games and small games to go on the PC stores and stuff. But I
hope they at least sell merchandise. I've never looked.
Dude, it's a cool ass world, like the art style and everything. But
it is. I mean, I honestly, dude, like, this was not on my mind, but like I truly believe this. Like, I think Starfield did worse because No Man's Sky exists. I'm not kidding.
I mean, potentially.
Because like No Man's Sky colored my perception of what a what do you call a sandboxy RPG space game could be.
Space game, yeah. 100%.
So like when Bethesda said they were making one, I'm just like, oh well. Like I never expected it would be as because like the thing with No Man's Sky is it's so huge because it's just generated forever.
Yeah.
You know, so I never expected Bethesda would go that route.
No.
But I expected like whatever Bethesda does, it's going to be No Man's Sky to the next level because they're huge, better development. You know, like all that
and the curated content that was their equivalent to what No Man's Sky had or has would have been better because it's Bethesda.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, as far as procedural generation goes, it's objectively worse than No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
And then, you know, crafted content. I mean, I've never actually played No Man's Sky. I would wager the crafted quests and stuff of Starfield are probably quite a bit better than what you can find in No Man's Sky. But like, that's really it. Otherwise, No Man's Sky is better in pretty much probably every other way.
Indeed, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I picked that up because of the latest update. It's called Worlds, I think, Part 1. Yeah. So that means there's going to be a Part 2.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, they could move on and make No Man's Sky 2 now. I think what they're doing, honestly, is like using these updates as like a way to keep selling the base game. And I think, in all honesty, with the limited amount of employees they have and kind of the attainable goals they've clearly set after the very, very tricky launch, they've realized like maybe that's the best way to go because it both earns their studio reputation, which it has done tenfold, but also makes their game sell as they put out new packs. I mean, like, I'm one of them, you know, like I bought the game. Again, I mean, I have it on PC, like, and I didn't want to play on PC, so I bought it on PS5 for £15, which is like chump change. But so I was happy to support them. But yeah, so that's what I did. Went hiking, like I said, was a great time. Dude, we did like this. My buddy Elliot, he brought. Have you ever heard of this thing called snus or snus?
Yeah. It's like tobacco related.
Yeah, it's like a tobacco nicotine packet and shit. And like I had one to try it for like, I don't know, fucking. Well, you can put it in for however long you want to put it in for, but basically, like you put it in for like 10 seconds and it instantly goes to your head. It's like holy shit. And obviously, I have like no nicotine tolerance because I don't smoke or anything. And it was just like, as soon as I put it in the first 10 seconds, I was like, my brain was just dinging, like my vision was shaking, like my hands.
Did you
were
like the feeling, or
dude? I felt like an electric shaver. Like it was wild. No, I didn't. I wouldn't do it again. And I dude, I had to lay down. Like I laid down. I was like, ugh. Like I was like, I can't do this. And then Owen had some, and then Felix had some, and Felix actually threw up. He made Felix throw up, and this was after he had his dinner. So like, he wasted all that money and he was hungry again. So it's just
the
like,
the energy's out of his body.
Yeah. So it just, and Owen didn't like it. He was like, that's
I can't
grim.
say I want to do it. Can't say I want to do it. Yeah.
It's very potent. I mean, the one I did was like 50 milligram sachet, and it was just like, oh my God. Like, but yeah, so we did that. That was an experience I would never do again. And yeah, so I think that's really been my week in many ways. I've been modding my tent to basically like change the guidelines on it and stuff, and like make it pull up higher and stuff like that. But aside from that, my week's been pretty good. So yeah, what about you?
You need to be friends with Kojima in real life so that he can put you in Death Stranding 2 as just this like random nomad who's like modifying his tent out in the wild.
Dude, I could be the tent giver. I could be the tent like, equipment giver.
I'm picturing like running up to you as Norman Reedus, character, and be like, what are you doing over here? And you're like, oi, mate, fuck off then. That'd be you. Yeah.
Oi, governor, what are you doing here? You chicken chaser.
My week's been pretty lame. I've been sick most of the week. I have an ear infection as we speak, unfortunately. Finished showing my wife all of Neon Genesis Evangelion. She doesn't like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
There was moments she was liking it, but then like something really sexual would happen and she'd be like, ugh. But that's not why she didn't. That's not the main reason she didn't like it, is because obviously, no spoilers, is Neon Genesis Evangelion ends in an extremely weird way. Like it feels like you're on an acid trip. And then after she watched how it ended, she was like, okay, I'm glad we're done. Like she didn't like it, so which is fair. I understand. It was something different, but now we started watching one of her animes, and a lot of her animes are like shoujo, like kind of like some girl who's in love with a guy. Okay, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually enjoy them. And I told her I think the reason I enjoy her anime so much more easier than she enjoys mine is because hers are usually like I said, like a girl likes some boy, but then there's some quirk, like the boy can turn into a cat or something. I'm just making something up.
Right.
And so it's easy for me to get into, but like something like Neon Genesis Evangelion, it's like so weird and high concept. I feel like she's just like, no.
Yeah.
So we're watching that. Yeah.
You guys together, I don't know if you can get it on PlayStation 5 or whatever, but if you can, play Doki Doki Literature Club together. Do you know what happens in that?
I don't know anything about this.
Okay, one, I know you like to spoil yourself on games, but for this experience, if you're going to play it, and I would say play it with Erica because it'd be crazy for you both to experience it at the same time.
Is it 2-player or like play it?
No, just hand the controller to each other or whatever. You play and she watches, or vice versa. And honestly, like, don't spoil it for yourself, because the whole point of the game is like the twists and stuff and the way.
Okay, but it's not going to be like something to disgust her, right?
Well, it deals with some pretty dark themes in terms of like.
I mean, she can handle stuff
and stuff.
Okay, no, yeah,
yeah. Like it gets.
She just hates like overtly sexual stuff. Like the thing with Neon Genesis Evangelion is like all the characters are 14.
All right,
and they're often sexualized.
That's so weird.
It is weird. I mean, I don't like that, but I'm also like
the rest of the show is so good.
Yeah, the rest of the show is so good, and I'm like, maybe this is a weird thought, but I'm like, if I had watched this when it was out, like I would have thought those characters were hot because I would have been younger than them. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Like I would have been a kid also.
Yeah, it would have been acceptable.
And most, but nowadays as an adult watching it, it's like, well, why are you? Because I wouldn't have looked at them as kids if I was watching it as a kid. I've been like, oh, 14, you're like a cool high schooler. Yeah. But like now I'm like, you're little kids. Why do you,
Yeah, why is this like it is? But yeah, I mean, was the show aimed at kids when it came out?
I mean, honestly, if you twisted my arm, I guess I'd say no. I mean, I think it was largely kids watching it, but like it was like too inappropriate for kids. But
gotcha.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like I don't know what Japan's culture was like in the 90s. I don't know.
Well, as far as I can tell, Japan's culture when it comes to like the genders is very like dominion based in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot of like control in many ways between the male and the female in relationships and stuff, and just courtship and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit strange, but it's
not like, obviously there's no like actual sexual acts happening, but it's like a 14-year-old girl walks in the room naked and like the chair might be blocking her breasts, and then or like she'll flash somebody her boobs, but you don't see it.
Sure.
It's like, why are we constantly seeing this 14-year-old girl take her clothes off?
Yeah. It just feels weird as an adult, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that really kind of threw her off. And I'm like, I don't really have much of a defense for that, except that it's a cartoon or it's an anime, and like the people doing the characters were not actual kids.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
But I don't know, it's weird. But I mean, I think in Japan, like the age of you can get married is like 14 or 15 or something like that. I think.
Yeah, it's lower than like the UK and the US, I think, as far as I'm aware. So
yeah, but yeah, so it's pretty much been my week. But yeah, well, of course I played the Concord beta, which I guess we can segue right into now if you're ready, Joe.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so let's see, where do I want to start here? So I got a positive article and a more negative article on Concord. I played it the whole weekend, starting on Friday. I played it Friday, I played it Saturday, I played it Sunday. Here's the weird thing. Like, I feel like I'm probably one of the worst people to give an opinion on this game. And to give you all some background, like, I am a single player, narrative driven gamer. I've played plenty of multiplayer, but like, for instance, let me give like Halo 2 is tied for like my favorite game of all time.
Yep.
And my favorite multiplayer of all time is Halo 2. Having said that, if you have me sit down and play Halo 2 multiplayer, I am bored within an hour. And that's my favorite. That's my favorite multiplayer experience ever. I did a podcast waiting for Halo Infinite for years. Halo Infinite came out inside of the week it came out. I was bored of the multiplayer. I get bored because for me, my mind just goes, I'm shooting people over and over again. There's no narrative. There's no story. So I don't judge these things quite the same way. Also, we talk about like Overwatch, which a lot of people have compared this game to. I got Overwatch at launch because there was such hype. And back when Overwatch was coming out, I don't know how many of you remember this, but like that was at a time where Blizzard had never done anything wrong in a sense. Like everything Blizzard had ever released was straight fire for the most part. So it was like, okay, I have to buy Overwatch because it will be a legendary, iconic game like the rest of their games. And some people would say it is. I think a lot of people would say it's not. But I played Overwatch for a week or so, and I thought it was fun. But I got bored because it's multiplayer. So playing Concord beta this weekend, I was immediately very shocked by the AAA quality of the game. Yeah. Because I think, thinking this is a studio's first game, even though they're veterans, it's a studio's first game. It's multiplayer only. It's $40 release. You would think, and of course, since it's like it's a free to play hero shooter, you would think, I thought it was going to be like quality, but maybe more artistic quality than cutting edge. Like the facial animations are amazing in this game, like really exceptional facial animations. We're talking like on, up there with a lot of other PlayStation first party. I think that's maybe part of one of many reasons why Sony was interested, because this does like cinematically in a sense go with their other IPs. So the quality bar is super high. And I think that's what's shocking when you boot it up. You're like, wow, the cutscenes look great, the graphics, the facial animations. So that was great. I saw the opening cutscene, and the opening cutscene, I guess I technically have more negative to say than positive, but like I thought the opening cutscene was cool and like I enjoyed it. And my only negative was that it was very clearly like the lowest common denominator Marvel humor. Like, did you watch it?
I did, and I also will say that I didn't really understand what was going on.
You beat me to it. That was my next thing. I was going to say, I was like, okay,
it feels like a cutscene that's halfway through, like something else. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I watched it. I'm like, oh, this is high quality. This is cool. And I'm like, and then at the end, I'm like, okay, yeah, that was some corny Marvel humor, but who cares, man? Like we all used to love Marvel, or some of us still do. And like, it's whatever. I'm cool with it, But then I was listening to one of the sacred symbols or Last Stand Media episodes. I can't remember if it was that or Summon Sign or whatever. And one of them mentioned that they had no idea what was going on in the cutscene. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, wait a minute, I didn't either. Like, because my thing was like, we know what this game is, right? It's about PvP. So I didn't think too hard about it. But I'm like, okay, who are these people? They're like they're Freestar gunners, and they're like going into like a new area in the galaxy. Yeah. Like, okay, is the other faction? Is it like is it a tournament? Is it an actual like enemy that wants to kill them? Like what? I have no idea the context of what's going on. So
from what I could tell,
go ahead.
It was kind of like a race to a score of some kind. Like I'm going to get to a score before you guys are, but I didn't understand what
is this like the
was.
Olympics of the galaxy? Like we don't know.
I mean, here we go. So I've got a synopsis from the wiki here.
Okay.
Concord takes place in a science fiction universe. The setting is populated by free gunners, interstellar mercenaries that journey across the galaxy in search of high-stake jobs and compete with themselves. So it's a bunch of mercenary groups, basically. One location, Crater City, was unveiled during Concord's second trailer in May 2024, which is the hot sauce trailer, I assume. So that's basically what it was. It was like a setup to like all those mercenary factions, like basically competing for high-stakes jobs. But I'm still not clear on what that was. What exactly
that wasn't conveyed very well. And like, even going off of what you told me, I'm like, what is the pull here? Like, is it, because is the grandness of the story, and obviously they want to dole this stuff out over time. So like, they don't want to give it all away, but like, I hope the grandness of the story isn't just like, who's the best mercenary? Like, you know, it's not, it's like a sports game or something, you know what I mean? Like, but I mean, the cutscene looked great, sounded great. The facial animations, I was like, I can see how this crew could be lovable. I mean, they're very, like I said, it's very much typical kind of Marvel humor, but I'm like, I can see them being lovable. They seem to get along. Okay, I'm ready to play the game. Get in the game, and I'm immediately like, wow, this is like really high quality mechanics. I'm having a blast. I'm actually killing people, which for me, as somebody who's horrible at PvP, I'm like, wow, this is cool. Maybe the slower gameplay helps me be better at the game. I don't know, because a lot of people have said this is slower than what they're used to. But I was having a blast playing it. I thought it was really well done. I didn't encounter any bugs. I tried out different characters, just kind of get an idea for what I wanted my playstyle to be. Like at first I was mostly like Teo, which is one of the most mainstream characters in the game because he's very much like a soldier, but it was easy for me to come to grips with it because, you know, he had like an assault rifle, and he had like grenades and stuff. And then I ended up finding Itzy, which is this like cat-like girl who can move around really quick and teleport. And she was more unique and more fun, and she was also kind of a similar play style in my mind to Teo and the movement. So I got accustomed to those two characters. I tried out other characters, but those were the two. I liked Lennox as well, except Lennox I like as to play as Lennox. I'm not sold on him as a character. But yeah, so I like several of the characters. I didn't get to try every single one, but I did try quite a bit. I tried Star Child. I thought they all had, you know, good design and they were fun to play.
I like the girl with the crossbow.
I liked her, but the only reason I did not. Oh, I don't remember.
She's cool though. I like her because like you can one shot people if you're good. Like,
see, that's the reason I didn't play as her. I thought she looked amazing, but everyone's like, she's only got one shot before she has to reload. So I was like, I'm not good enough for that crap, you know. So so I didn't play her. But yeah, there's a good like 16 characters. I like the art design a lot. Like I said, all the fidelity, everything is operated in a very high quality. I had fun playing it. I played it all weekend. I mean, I left it and went and played Elden Ring and came back and played it again and left it and played Elden Ring and came back again. And I played it throughout the weekend. And for me, it was like, this is where it's tough for me because as somebody who not only doesn't really play multiplayer much, but doesn't really engage in like free to play.
Yep.
I understand that we're in a time where a game being good does not mean it garners any success or praise or love. And my opinion, and you know, once I get going through all my spiel, I'll pass over to Joe. And I would honestly take what Joe has to say better, probably because he's more experienced with the stuff. But for me, it was like, well, this game's good. Like, it's legitimately fun to play. It's got a lot of different characters. It's high quality. Why shouldn't this garner some level of success? I'm not saying Helldivers, or I'm not even saying something that's like a zeitgeist. I'm just saying, why can't this maintain a few thousand players, you know,
double digits maybe, like double digit thousands.
Like, exactly. Like
10K
and it was just good. But it's a combination of saying, okay, there is so much on the market, not only to pay for, but also just so much to play for free that kind of directly competes with this. There's also more coming with like Marvel Rivals, which is launching free. And the general sentiment from people is that this isn't doing anything new to pull them in from other similar things. And it costs $40 to get it. There is no free to play option. And for me, it's like, well, if I played it all weekend and had fun, you know, because like, it's hard for me to look at it critically, because for me it was always a multiplayer only game, a PvP only game.
You're
So I was
always
never
under that lens, like
yeah,
personally, yeah.
me personally, it was like, it was never going to be more than PvP. So
Yep.
I'm like, I played it and I'm like, this seems more or less as good as I could hope. The one thing I mean, to be fair, like some people have said like, oh, they don't resonate with any characters. I don't really resonate with any characters either, but to be fair, I didn't really resonate with any in Overwatch. When I bought that game. I do think like someone like Tracer stands out as like iconic character design more so than any of these characters.
100%.
But there's a lot of characters in Overwatch that I don't really know their name or don't think about them at all. So yeah, I would say Tracer is definitely on another league of character design than anything in this game. Everybody knows Tracer, right? I mean, she's like a gaming icon, which is weird because there's like barely any story to that game.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and I feel like as you talk, it'll maybe bring up more things that I want to bring up. But a lot of people are saying that the game doesn't really feel like Overwatch. And I've heard people say why that is. Like, for instance, in Overwatch, it's very clear, like, you need to be a tank, you need to be a healer, you need to be DPS, where this game's more like, there are tanks and healers, but at the same time, everybody kind of plays like similarly enough that you can have a team full of just damage people or just tanks or just healers and it'll work out.
Yep.
So it's less has that meta of like who's playing who and covering which spot. It's kind of just everything goes. Which maybe for me as somebody who doesn't really play PvP, it's more simplistic in that nature and that helps.
Yep.
I don't know, to just like, I do feel like I have a lot more to say, but I'm gonna pass over to Joe so he can kind of bring some things up in my mind. But I will just say that playing this game as somebody who's not huge into multiplayer, who's played Overwatch and other stuff like that, it felt just as high quality and more or less just as fun as those other games.
Yeah.
So it kind of shocks me how much people are hating on this. But I do kind of see some of the arguments as to where this game seems to have more of a sense of blandness than other games that feel more alive. Like Overwatch feels like it's really character. Now I'm not talking about literally the characters. The game has so much character.
Yeah.
By comparison, or like, you know, Marvel Rivals, they're going to get a free pass because they're Marvel characters in that sense. Or I don't know if you would compare like obviously League of Legends is a whole different game, but like they have made people fall in love with those characters. And I don't really see anybody feeling that super hyper fandom attachment to these characters. So I could see this being a sense of like, yeah, it's really good. And there's other options that are cheaper that play just as good or better. And we're not attached to these people yet. So
yeah,
that's just some of my thoughts. Joe, take it away.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess I'll go with my background in terms of Concord and what I wanted from this game. In many ways, I was open to a game like completely doing its own thing and also being a hodgepodge of a lot. Like I've said on the previous podcast episodes, like this game to me just seemed like it combined a lot of what I love about lots of games like Destiny's Crucible and Overwatch's class design, and also like just down to the little things like the health system being able to be, you know, keep you in the game a bit longer and go away and heal, and
I like there's health on the map. I like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. And I was like, this is really cool. It's got like elements of like Halo and obviously Destiny with the movement. It's got the pickup style of the health packs and all that. But and I think in many ways, like I was more interested in the game to play than Bryan, just simply because like I have that background of first person shootering. Whether it's Quake 3 Arena, whether it's you know, Destiny 1's Crucible, whether it's Counter-Strike Go back in the day, Counter-Strike Source.
Like to be fair, I have a deep FPS lineage just single player. Like I played original Doom and all that stuff.
Yeah. But I'm strictly talking about like multiplayer aspects here. Yeah. And yeah, like I love them. I love multiplayer shooters. I've got thousands of hours on Escape from Tarkov. Like I do. I adore them. I think they're brilliantly made video games within that genre. And so like I guess the thing is, like, I was hearing lots of people like talking about it, like before obviously the early access beta came out, like this game is not great. This game is like, you know, like it looks boring, it looks bland, the Marvel humor's not hitting right, like another like sort of hero shooter, blah blah blah, like really leaning into the hyperbole of this game is going to be trash. And admittedly, I'll like predicate what I'm about to say on the fact that like I literally have only played like I think I played like 4 games or something like that on the PC.
You were out of town. Yeah,
I was out of town. I was, like I said, I was camping and I got back and I was tired when I was playing it. So a lot of my thoughts are very like raw and also not very well founded. So I will like preface that. But the impressions I got from the game is, while I agree that the game is incredibly well polished from a presentational standpoint and a design standpoint, the nuances that make first-person shooters so like important to me and impactful, and actually the things that make other first-person shooters stick in my mind and make me play longer, aren't necessarily present in Concord. One of the biggest things for me when I first played the game was the movement. I really, really struggled with the fact how slow it was and how unnimble I felt, even on the lightest classes. Like, I played the woman who can do spins and throw balls out there with the mini submachine gun. I don't know her name.
It's Z.
Like, and she's really fast, right? Like, she's a pretty fast like class, and even she felt really slow.
Well, I've heard a lot of the problem is with the field of view is very bad. The FOV. Like, because did you play on PC or did you play?
PC.
Okay,
yeah.
Did you turn your FOV up?
I think I did, but again, like, it's very murky in terms of what I did with because I just jumped in. I was just like, I'm going in.
Yeah, only PC has an FOV slider, and it doesn't let you turn it up to like 120. It's like a 90. So that has to do with a lot of why it. I'm not saying that it couldn't also just be designed quicker to make it better, but like 100%. The FOV is a big part of it. But anyways, go on.
So it felt weird. It felt sluggish, and then like, I mean, we was reading off the previews for the IGN articles from like what's her name? Is it what's her name? Gemma Chan? I can't remember her name anyway. But
you mean Stella Chan?
Stella Chan, that's it. That's her name. She's
Chung.
great,
maybe Stella Chung, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, you can find her preview article out there, and she said like things like the dodge mechanic was like really delayed and weird, and it just felt like as soon as you hit the roll and stuff, like it felt like it was an out of body experience in many ways. It just didn't feel like.
I really liked the dodge. Yeah, I really liked it.
Here's the thing: like, I got to agree with her. I think it's really weird. Like,
you probably know better. You probably know better. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to like completely like pretend I know better, but it's one of those things where
more
like,
experience with this stuff. I just to me the fact that it went third person made it really a lot more fun for me. So
100. Like, here's the thing: like, I think having things like that third person like viewpoint going into it is really cool and is unique. But in all honesty, I think from like a functional standpoint, I think just a normal dodge would have worked better, where it just kind of zooms in the first person mode kind of thing for all characters or whatever. So like that immediately didn't feel great for me. And then one thing that really turned me off is just like kind of the way the maps are laid out, and just I felt like the maps were just very bland in terms of what they were offering. I have to admit, like,
I thought the art design was good, but I thought the layout was very simplistic.
So here's the thing: like, presentationally, like I said earlier, the game is actually like gorgeous. Like, it's a gorgeous video game. It's just that when I was running around the maps over and over again, and there was like the only thing I could know to pick up was like health packs and stuff. It was like, I feel like we're missing a core element of what this particular like side of the game could have. You know, some form of like crazy happenstance going on. Like, I don't like, obviously it's out there, but you know how Battlefield used to have like not destruction, but just like game-changing map things that would happen, or you know, like lean more into the pickups of like what Halo had and Destiny had and stuff.
Like on Terminal when a train came by type thing.
Yeah, just little things like that, which I think could have elevated it.
It did feel like the only thing alive in the maps was the players. Like, that's it.
Yes.
And I think, but I think really the only thing, because I mean, like I said, I'm more simplistic. I enjoyed the maps. I thought they were pretty.
Yeah.
The only thing that stuck out to me is like every map, even if this isn't actually the case, every map in my mind more or less felt like 3 lanes.
Yes.
Like 3 lanes in like one center type area, and that was kind of what all the maps were.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're somebody who's like used to playing Halo the whole life, like both of us, it's like, well, Halo's gotten like very original with their maps, like done crazy stuff, and like every map here seemed like it was similar layout. And like there is some verticality, but it seems very light. Like this character's on top of a box more than like they're actually like up on some crazy place where I'm like below the map, or you know, I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. And then like I think this has been mentioned before as well, and I have to concur. The time it takes for games to start and end is way too quick.
I do want to comment on this. Well, okay, here's the tough thing, man. Here's the tough. I hate to say this, but like, okay, as somebody who's narrative, story, single player first, the idea that this game would have a heavy story aspect was cool to me.
Yeah,
like
100%, me too. Yeah,
because like for instance, the closest thing I could think of to where it actually worked for me was like Spartan Ops and Halo 4. Back in the day, I liked Halo 4, and I kept coming back. Now that wasn't PvP, but it was very repetitive, fighting enemies over and over again in like multiplayer maps. That's what Spartan Ops was.
Yep.
but I kept coming back because they had like a cool cutscene with a cool story. So that could work for me here. But there's two problems I have. One, based on just the beta and the scene that we saw, like you and I said, we were kind of confused. We didn't understand what the setup was. So they didn't invest me simply because I didn't know what was going on with just that cutscene. Now, maybe this is a beta thing. Maybe it's not like that in the full game. But then the second big problem I have is, and I really appreciated it my first match, but by the second match, I wasn't appreciating it anymore, is that every match begins with this long, like, ship coming out of outer space.
Yeah.
It's a cutscene. Ship coming out of space. It goes into the planet. Then it goes around to the map. Then it circles around. Then it lands. Then it shows your, and I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to do here, and I do appreciate it. But since this isn't single player, just get me to the action. It's
very Titanfall, isn't it? Like, but I think in many ways it's not as badass because there's something about like third person, like seeing that shit. If it's not like, because the thing is like Helldivers does that, right? Where it's like you go in your pods, the music's kicking up, and then like the music crescendos and stuff, and it's very similar to that. But like the way Helldivers does it is just way more like cool, just because the music, the various elements, like they're dropping in. It just
feels like it's happening.
Yeah,
100%. Where in Concord, like it very much feels
from
to me,
a menu. Like
Concord to me feels like we got these multiplayer maps and our players here, and then we have our files of cutscenes here.
Yes,
and we put them together. It's like I don't feel like they're connected. They feel separate. Yeah,
that is bang on. And like, and I just said Titanfall. It's like the cool thing about Titanfall is like you come in on the spaceship, or the drop pod or whatever, and then like you are literally in first person within the dropship and you jump out. In Concord, it's watching a fucking spaceship coming in, dropping off, and then buggering off, and then you're there.
You're just standing with your other teammates ready to go in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. And while I applaud and appreciate like the effort to make it like seem cool, and that can get old very quickly. It's kind of like how Halo Infinite does it. Like if you look at Halo Infinite, like everyone has like the same fucking animations, or when I played, they had the same animations when you started, where everyone's like, whoo, whoo, whoo. And it's just like, how many times am I going to see this animation? Over and over again. Like if you do something like that, you've got to make it snappy. Otherwise, I just feel like I'm sitting waiting for ages. And because I only played, like I said, like 4 games or whatever, that didn't bother me. But I can imagine like if I played it for a weekend like you did, Bryan, it'd be like, fucking hell, am I doing this again?
on Sunday when I was like queuing into matches and watching the opening scenes, I'm like, I just want to play. And the thing is, if you're somebody who gets really into this and you play 1,000 matches,
that's a lot of time.
Well, okay, let's say you've played 100 matches. You've probably lost 5 to 10 matches worth of time watching those cutscenes at the beginning 100 times.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't you rather have the matches? Yeah. Especially when it doesn't really change. And I don't know what level what grand level they're going to continue this narrative weekly. Mm-hmm. But this is what sucks so much. Like I want this game to succeed, and I had a great time with it. I'm going to play the beta this week. I'm going to play the beta all weekend again.
I'm going to get more hours in. Yeah.
But if so much of it seems to me what they're communicating is so much of the pull of Concord and what makes it special is that this is narrative focused. Even though it's multiplayer, it's narrative focused. Cutscenes daily or each are the weekly vignettes. You know, they've talked about that. They really drove that home. And what's going to drive this? It's not going to be and I love that there's no battle passes.
Yeah,
it's not going to be battle passes. It's not going to be this FOMO stuff. It's going to be what's going on in the story. And come back each week, and it's going to be there. And that sounds like a ton of work.
Yep.
When you not only haven't got your base in yet, your player base in yet, but then does the player base even care about the story? And that doesn't necessarily mean that's because the story's bad. That just means look at the audience you're targeting. You're targeting the PvP hero shooter people. They usually don't give a shit about the story.
Yeah.
So if how many people do you get that care, and then like how much work you put into that? And if you're selling the game at $40 and there's no battle pass, which like I said, I don't want a battle pass personally. I like the $40 thing.
Yeah.
But what is going to let's say people don't care about the story. Let's pretend that the story is actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. A lot of people aren't going to care about the story. Why are they coming back? I guess it could be for unlocks, but what I saw from unlocks, and of course it's a beta, you don't really know, but like it doesn't seem like the unlocks are super extensive. Like I haven't seen some like amazing costume you could unlock where it turns that main character with the crossbow into some like demon hunter looking thing where you're like, oh my gosh, it looks so badass. I gotta get it. And then another element that hopefully I'm not getting too far ahead of you here is, and I don't know if you know this. The only reason I know this is because I've read up on the game. Is that part of the meta of this game is going to be your cards, like with your deck.
Yep.
And what it's going to be, it's very different. You're going to be able to choose characters based on their perk.
Yeah, it's like variants, isn't it?
Variants, but the same character could have different variants. So it could be that your deck has 3 Lennoxes.
Yeah.
You can play all 3 Lennoxes, but each Lennox has a different perk. And one Lennox could be like, you reload faster. And the other Lennox could be like, we all run 10% faster. And the way they have the game designed is that if you're smart about building your deck and changing this out, the abilities stay with your team and carry over. So if we were able to get into the meta, maybe it's like, okay, Joe's going to provide the team with the reload and the speed and this, and I'm going to bring like the increased damage and blah, blah, the jump height. And if you all organize that right, it could be really interesting. But what's so weird to me is that the only thing different about you playing Lennox 3 different times is this random little change, like little perk, which is like, maybe that could be good, but I'm like, I don't, wouldn't it make more sense if the perks like attached to like a loadout or like some kind of upgrade for one variant? Like, why do I need 3 variants? Because the thing is, if you put, and I've seen this too, if you get like a new jacket for Lennox and you put it on variant 1, you have to get a different jacket for variant 2. And it's like, well, I wouldn't want, it's like, I wouldn't want, like if my favorite character is Lennox, even if the variants are different, I just want him to be in his cool costume the whole time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something I'm misunderstanding, or maybe the beta is not clear on that, but like, it seems like a lot of extra work to like separate the character 3 times when it's just like, I mean, look at a million games we played where it's like, oh, I have this thing in my inventory that gives me 10% reload speed. Like, why do it this way? But I could see how cool and interesting it could be, because the big difference here that's actually really cool is that this stuff all carries over. If you switch your character out, or your character dies, or they go to a new round, this stuff stays. Like if I put a trap up in the game and we go to a new round and no one hit the trap will still be there. If I was on Lennox and gave everyone a reload increase and then I switched over to Star Child, everyone's going to get the reload increase from the one time I played Lennox, even though I'm not playing Lennox anymore. I think that stuff's neat. The variant system, even if it actually was good and I didn't realize it, I think the presentation of it is not going to sell itself to the audience, because people are going to be like, oh, I'm just putting the same character in 3 times. And then there's one super minute difference. It's just not, it's not exciting.
I mean, that I haven't even explored that side of it, because like I said, 4 games, but that to me sounds so confusing. Like, as someone who's getting into the game, what the fuck is going on? Like, why? I mean, I understand why, but I'm sitting here questioning the design decision in general, because it's just overtly confusing for the sake of a unique way of building classes and stuff. It's like
imagine if someone joined in our game, Joe, and they join in and they hear me over chat going like, Joe, why are you playing as Lennox? Like, we don't need reload speed. We need run speed. Switch out to Lennox.
Yeah.
And then the person's like, why is he yelling at him, telling him to stop playing Lennox to switch over to Lennox? And what I'm really saying is like variant 2
different
that has
Linux,
the speed boost.
Yeah. It's fucking
and that'd be
weird,
so
dude.
confusing. Yeah.
And I'm gonna go back a little bit on what you said about like people being interested in the storylines. Like with these kind of games where you get a cutscene every so often and you have to follow it in the game itself, people put this shit online on YouTube, like for people to follow. A lot of people are gonna do that, dude. Like if they're interested in the story, but obviously the actual gameplay doesn't play into the matches you play doesn't play into the cutscenes necessarily, and everyone kind of seems to get like a seasonal cutscene or whatever the fuck. They're going to go and just watch him on YouTube. Like, if they're fascinated by, Linux and his... Is it Linux? Linus?
I thought it was Linux, like Lennox.
Linux. I don't know. Anyway, fucking
not quite the same
Windows
with the
operating system.
Like, a little different than the operating system. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, like, I think people are going to, like, go and look at that instead. Like, I don't think you can... The story in a PvP game is always going to come second. Even if it's something like Tarkov that has extreme levels of lore, if it's like fucking, I don't know, like Counter-Strike with its various like offshoot fucking like campaign modes like that came out alongside Source and stuff, or, whether it's like Doom and stuff or Quake, like even if you play Quake single player, the story a lot of the time comes second to the actual gameplay. It's like... unless you're actually like making a game like Halo or Destiny or something that like puts serious like credence into its storyline, you're not really going to get a lot of people over, because the thing that brings people in for story is stories. As simple as that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be in for that. And if the main focal point of Concord isn't the story, but it's like a part they're emphasizing, but they're not putting actual gameplay playthrough emphasis on it, then it's going to make people go, what's the point?
Well,
And yeah, so like,
no.
I guess like from that, I don't know if were you going to say something on that? Like, what,
well, tell me if you agree with this. Is what I hate to admit, right? Because I'm a guy who, if the world revolved around me and I was selfish, I would have all video game assets go into single player experiences, because I just don't need PvP, right?
You selfish motherfucker.
No, I wouldn't do that. I'm just saying, like, if everyone on the earth just perished or something,
it's just you,
just me. It's like, okay, just don't even make multiplayer ever, because I just want to play single player.
Yep.
So I hate saying this as that kind of person, but here's the truth. I get the vibe that, and this is not how game development works, but I'm just going to make it very simplistic. Let's say they have 24 people, 36 people working around the clock each week to build the next Visionette, continue the story. I feel like they would get more players and have more success if they took the 36 people or whatever that are working on the Visionettes weekly, slaving over putting out these high quality cutscenes that are animated and all this stuff. If they just took them all off, dropped the story from the game entirely, and just had those 36 people work on new cosmetics and badass guns and stuff that people can put on, right? Like, I feel like there's a much better chance people are going to be like, oh, every week there's like new costumes, new guns, all this stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying new guns like mechanically, like just how they look. Like maybe Lennox's pistol looks like freaking badass, looks like a crow or something. I don't know. Like, I feel like the time would be better invested that way. And then that I could also like segue that into like the price point thing. Now, me personally, the kind of weird PvP gamer that I am, I don't have any problem paying $40 for this. It's like $40. It's high quality. I know what I'm going to get out of a PvP game as much as I play it. I think this is great. I'm sick of the Battle Pass stuff. But if the $40 thing is such a make or break it for this game's success, then you would think, okay, they got to pivot to microtransactions and or a Battle Pass, which then that reinforces what I said about the time they're going to spend on cutscenes and story. Because if you're going to give this game for free or with PS Plus or something, and then Sony's like, okay, we're going to make our money now with microtransactions, Battle Passes.
Yep.
Just let's be real. Just dump the story, dump that effort and time, put it into cranking out amazing, new maps and new characters, which they said they were going to do anyways.
Content.
More guns, more costumes, more trinkets, more charms. And then get people being like, oh my gosh, like every 7 days I'm seeing on the like on my PlayStation Home dashboard, Concord's got this week. Or like, oh, look, there's an Astrobot charm that Lennox can wear on his chest.
Yeah.
Or like Star Child can look like, this character from Horizon, something like that. And I feel like that would go such a longer way. So it's like, it's tough, dude, because it's like, what are the strengths of this game? Veteran developers, very well made, very high quality. That's the strengths. And those are some really big strengths, because like if your game isn't fun and high quality and like done by talented people, then I mean that's the core, right? But like
100%.
all the things that are going against them, a ton of other games that feel very similar to this one. They're all free to play. This one's $40.
Yeah.
They don't have a battle pass like free to play structure set up for a game that launches in a month, because that's not what this game was supposed to be. It's heavy emphasis on story, but most of the people that come to these type of games don't care about the story. Not to mention, which it could be a little prejudice because like people haven't actually got this full game out yet, but like it seems like even if people did care about the story, they're not really resonating with these characters or this setup as it stands right now. We're very early. We've only played the beta.
Yep.
So it's like they have all these things working against them. The price point, the investment and story that people don't seem to want, the fact that there's so much competition, they're free to play other places. And it's on PlayStation. And I mean, of course, it's on PlayStation and PC, which is plenty, but it's not going to be on Switch. It's not going to be on Xbox. It's not going to be on Mac. It's not going to be on mobile.
Yep.
So it's got so many things fighting it, and I don't even know what you do and I'll be interested in passing to you here in a second to see what you say. But like, let's say they said, okay, we've seen the feedback, blah blah blah. This is going to be free to play.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like they would have to delay the game a little bit because they're not prepared to have microtransactions in a way that they can make money in a
Mhm.
month. And then the delay is going to hurt it because everyone knows the perception of the game is bad
Yep.
online. But if they don't delay, then I think they have to stick with the $40 price tag. Stick with the $40 price tag. I mean, we don't really know numbers, but the Steam peak was like what 2,000 players, I think, this past
No, not
weekend.
even that. Like 1,200.
1,200. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, on PC Steam numbers, the only people who could play were people that worked at the company and people who pre-ordered the game. They already paid for it. So that's not necessarily fair because like this weekend is going to be open beta. Yeah, this can be open beta where everyone can play it for free this weekend, no matter what. But you would think that pre-orders for a AAA,
Sony
PvP from Sony,
Yep.
it's going to be more than 1,200 people playing on there. So
Yep.
I don't know. And this is what sucks, right? Is because I feel like the conversation is going to go into like, how do they write this? How do they fix this? How do they change the perception? How do they get an audience? But it doesn't, it almost feels, I'm not saying it is unfair, but it almost feels unfair that's the question because they've built a great game here. In my opinion, they built a very solid, fun game. It's just very late to the party with this type of game. There's so much out there with so much content for free. I just don't know what to do about it. I just don't know their direction. And like, I don't know. Just over to you, Joe. I mean, that's a lot I said there.
One thing I will say is like this game, like I have like no problem like playing it some more in the beta, like buying the £40 if I like it this weekend, some more and stuff. I get more games in and I end up taking to it. Like I have no problem paying £40, but I think Concord's in a really tricky situation now and Firewalk are in a really tricky situation because the situation now is that they haven't necessarily seemingly got a confident install base on both platforms. I assume so, especially like PC, which is a major market for PvP shooters. And I think from day one, they've had an issue with I think one of their biggest problems is marketing because when they showed off Concord originally, it was in this it was the hamburger trailer and it was the spaceship and it was like, what is this? And no one really knew what it was because it was so early in development and it was just kind of it's cool. It looks interesting, but we don't really know what it is. And we were speculating in terms of what it was, obviously, before we got the trailer and more details after the state of play. And then when the state of play came out, which is what I just said, it was kind of like putting you into this world that you, again, just like the cutscene in the game itself, once you boot it up, almost starts like you should know what's going on. And it's a bunch of people in a bar, in a diner, like having a conversation, talking about hot sauce, and then all of a sudden they're into scrapping, and then they have like a epic moment where they're looking off into the sunset and stuff, and it's like, yeah, we're freelancers or whatever they're fucking called. And it's like, okay, cool, like it looks pretty, it looks gorgeous, like the stuff looks great, and I can kind of get what it is now, but I'm not quite sure how you want me to feel about the game from those trailers. And then that is doubled down in the actual game itself. I mean, like, I'm not going to go on to I don't necessarily. I think we should save, Brian. I think we should save what we think the future of and the plan of this game should be once we've read the articles. But one thing I will say is like every part of this game oozes like inconsistency to me, even though it's a AAA level quality video game. Like, I have no problem with what they've made necessarily in terms of the quality and what the developers individually have put out here, because I can see, it's running on Unreal Engine 5. It looks so unique. It looks so colorful. It's so gorgeous. The gunplay is pretty good, et cetera, et cetera. The maps are pretty, very pretty and nicely laid out and stuff, even though I think they're lacking in some form of, unique flair and stuff. But, even down to, little things I don't know, like I said, the game pacing, the fact that, from what I can tell in the beta, the rewards are pretty kind of naff when it comes to weapon skins and stuff like that. It doesn't feel very rewarding. And also, like you said, with the variant classes that goes on. And then also, from what I can tell with the balancing is, even though there's classes, it seems like there isn't much emphasis on the classes themselves. It's more about obviously how you use those classes together, but also it's more about just clumping up together and just walking around the map together. From the little games I played,
that's what it was.
The precedent I found was that the games that were won were just a bunch of people clamoring together and focusing people sequentially, one after the other, and taking people down. And because respawns are staggered in the mode I played, which was, I think it was just a team deathmatch kill confirm thing. Yeah. In the mode I played, it was just like, it felt like I could never string a team together in the right way to counter that tactic when I'm not playing with pre-mades, when I'm not playing with people I know. Mm-hmm. And just little things like that just felt really inconsistent all the way through. Another thing that I'll say is, like, I said this to you in DMs when I first played it. I think the way they've done, like, the two on certain people, certain classes, I mean, like, Lennox is a prime example. And from what I can tell, the big walking garbage can, the yellow thing.
One off.
Right, him. He, like, these two classes, this is a problem I've noticed, is they've got very similar primaries to secondary weapons. And Lennox is a prime example here where, like, I didn't, like, as a starting player, I had no fucking clue what weapon I was using, because both are revolvers, and yes, they look slightly different colors and styles. One's more bigger and chunkier than the other, but ultimately, like, in the heat of battle, I always felt like I was confused as to what I was actually using in that moment, if that makes sense. And I just felt like from a design standpoint, it was like, that is so inconsistent, because, like, every other character in the game, for the most part that I played, had either one weapon, right, or they had two weapons, but the secondary was like a clear distinction, which was a pistol. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I'm using the pistol now. Okay, I'm using the assault rifle. And the worst part about it is, I think this game would have benefited from the way Overwatch does their secondary and primary fires, which is basically like left click, right click, and leave it at that. I don't necessarily think you needed like two different weapons for two different types of machine gunning. Like, you could have literally had, like, even if it was like the assault rifle guy, what's his name? The guy KO. Like, if your left click was machine gun, and your right click was like single fire or something, but it did more damage or something like that, like little things like that I think would have just made the overall flow of the game more consistent, and just play better. And I think, like, just those little things, like I've just said, is a representation of this whole game just feeling a bit muddy in terms of what it wants to be, where it needs to be. And yeah, I just I enjoyed my time with it, like, from the 4 games I played, but I just think that it's neither here nor there in terms of like a PvP shooter, and that's a shame to me.
Here's what I think is interesting. I wonder if you'll agree with me or not. You talk about it being muddied. I think there's one way in which it doesn't seem muddy. I think I could recontextualize this to where it doesn't seem muddied anymore. Okay. And I mean this as a compliment, but I'm worried that it might not be, because there's a great chance this is not their intent. But, like, if this was like marketed as a more accessible hero shooter, for, like, not necessarily for a younger audience. I mean, that as well, but also, like, because think about this game, like, it is kind of a lot of the things but more simplified, right? Like, classes, but they don't matter so much. Maps, but they're more 3-lane. Characters, but they're very diverse and not sexualized at all.
Right.
There's actually more females in this game than there are males, right? Like, it feels very, like, it kind of feels really accessible, right? Because, like, it's easy to, like, and it's also easy to switch between characters, even if they're quite different, because they all have like I feel like they did a good intentional job of making it easy to switch from the characters. I think it's intentional that they want you to, if you get really invested in this game, the goal is to play through all the free Star Gunners. It is not to, I'm a Star Child main.
I'm a main,
and I've invested $180 in microtransactions for Star Child. It is, I am a free gunner and I play all these characters and I know their abilities, and there's a similarity to them all. Like, you don't have to learn to be a tank. You don't have to learn to be a healer. And I think if you tell me if you agree with that statement, Joe. If this was clearly marketed as a more accessible beginners type hero shooter, does it then become less muddied in your eyes, or is it still just as muddy to you?
I don't know, because if the idea is that it's meant to be a simplistic shooter, I don't know what it appeals to in that regard. because
I mean, honestly, someone like me or someone who's less
100%.
interested in PvP or.
But you know what? I honestly think I don't think if that's like you said, it probably isn't their intent.
Yeah,
But I think like Overwatch has that in the bag tenfold more than this game because
you're probably right. You're probably right.
And then I also would go because Overwatch
but doesn't
is what it
Overwatch
is.
have so much like meta and understanding and
it
depth,
does.
which
it
like
does.
this, wouldn't have that is what I'm saying. But maybe.
Yeah. I don't. It's hard. That's a really hard question because like. Yes, I can see it being a dumbed down like version of a hero shooter intentionally, but again, nothing has been clear to mention that. And also, if it was the case,
but there hasn't been much clear though either. Like really altogether.
Yeah,
like I think we're. I mean, we've kind of already touched on it, but I think the marketing hasn't been too clear. I actually, it's fun. I don't know if you remember this, but like somewhere out there is a stream of me. When this game was first announced with the cheeseburger trailer. I don't remember what I said, but I said something along the lines of, I don't care about this game at all.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine who worked on Concord messaged me and was like, oh, I can't believe on your stream. You're like, I don't care at all. And he's like, that's the game I'm working on. And I felt bad, but then I was like, after I apologized, I felt bad. I said, well, he was like, it's not a big deal. But then I was like, well, okay. But in my credit though, like, all I saw was a trailer of a spaceship with a cheeseburger, and it's called Concord. Like, why should I care at all? Like, literally, why should I care at all? Like, I have nothing to go off of. And then we wait and see what it is. We know that it's like live service through like what we've heard, and then it finally comes out and they show it off, and like, it looks beautiful. It's obvious it's like more of a hero shooter type thing, but it's like they said that basically their biggest like new selling point was the vignettes that come out each week.
Yeah.
But besides the fact that it's like a PvP hero shooter and that there's like this heavy emphasis on the vignettes, that's pretty much kind of been it for like the angle of what it is. Yeah. So I don't know. Has the marketing been objectively poor at getting across what they want? And I think that like the $40 kind of makes a lot of sense to me when you think of the market of like, this is your Sony like user base and they're used to like single player narrative. And this is like a multiplayer offering. It's a cheaper price. It's got this emphasis on story. Like, I think I can see the pitch before it's revealed where this makes so much sense. Cause you're like, it's a heavy story emphasis and it's cheaper and it's for the PlayStation audience. It's got these lovable characters that they can attach themselves to. And maybe there's, they don't have to worry about the battle pass and they don't have to worry about buying the new hero because it's all free. Like, it's starting to make a lot of sense to me. But then when it actually is revealed, I feel like the audience that's scrutinizing it is basically a combo of hardcore PvP players in other games and the free-to-play market. And it doesn't seem that this appeals to hardcore PvP or free-to-play.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's tough, dude.
It's hard, right, dude? Like, because how do you criticize something that we're a little bit in the dark in terms of what they necessarily wanted to make and their inspirations and stuff. I mean, we know their inspirations just by looking at the game and stuff, but it just kind of feels all over the place. And I think ultimately, like, it's so hard because I really wanted this game to like blow the socks off of people because it had everything that could potentially do well for a shooter. Like, it has cool, colorful like characters and world. Like, it has seemingly little bits of live service elements that don't seem too predatory. It has a nice entry price of £40,
and we both knew that people were hating on it way too hard for what they'd seen at the time. Like, now people have played it in the beta. There's more. I mean, there's no reason to be like absolutely a dick, but like, there's more reason to be hard on it now that you've played it. But like, when the bad press first came out, it was like, y'all have only seen a short trailer. Like, that's it.
Yeah. And I honestly think, like, we're going to move into the articles here in a second, but our second one by Gene Parker from the Washington Post, the headline is literally, it says, Concord is Sony's expertly crafted big bet. It's just a few years late. And this, to me, this just reminds me of Lawbreakers. I really do. Like, even though it's not a one-to-one video game, like the whole situation where a saturated market with way too much going on, and this game not posing enough to either catch a zeitgeist in the moment to get an install base like Helldivers has. Because let's be honest, like Helldivers was never going to last forever, but at least it captured a zeitgeist to have enough people to keep it like upholstered at like now and
for years.
For years to come, hopefully. And they made the money even if that didn't happen. But this neither does capture the zeitgeist to upholster the install base and to keep the studio running, seemingly so. Obviously, the game is yet to come out, nor does it establish a consistent fan base that is massive for years and years to come, like a Destiny or something.
Yeah.
And that's such a shame because in many ways, like, I'm touching wood here because I really don't want this to happen to Firewalk because they seem like really good people and stuff. The writing is on the wall with this game because of the marketing, because of what it is. And I don't know if there's anything more they can do aside from ride out the storm to get to the end of whatever that end of storm is.
You mentioned Gene Park saying like it's a few years late. I feel like this game would have been, I mean, this is so easy to say. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of pointless to say, honestly, but if this game came out 10 years ago, this would have been huge. I mean, I think exactly as it is now, with no changes.
Yeah.
Even though there's there may still be problems that persist, like maybe the roles aren't differentiated enough or whatever things you've said, or maybe the maps are too similar, linear, but like
it would be enough.
10 years ago, this would have been like, holy shit, like people would have been flooding to this game. But like, it just does seem like we've seen so many variants of it already, and big players have already established themselves in so many ways. And a lot of people, we even do it. Of course, we don't mean it the way that it may come across to other people, but like people always bring this up alongside Helldivers, and makes sense because it's the other live service game that Sony's already put out. But like Helldivers was like this old ass engine and this really unique PvE type game that like there is no direct competitor to. It was like, here's something new that it's fun and it's cool and we haven't really seen it, and it's like, that was enough, right? Because it's like nobody else is doing this. But like, even though Concord may be different in this way or that way or this way, it's like it's very clear that there is half a dozen easily accessible games already out that are like this one.
Yeah, and this is the thing: because they're already established, they have less bugs, they're tighter potentially in gameplay elements. There's more content, there's more maps.
There's more content at the free to play than there is paying for this.
Yes,
which is what's crazy. Like if you don't buy any of their battle passes or microtransactions, you name any free to play game that's been out for years, it's gonna have more content. And probably more story actually, just because of the time it's been out.
100%. So anyway, but
okay, let's go over. Let's get these articles right here. So I haven't read through these entirely yet. I guess I did read through Gene Parks, but I have one article that's more positively and one that's a little more negatively. And so the first one is from Gene Park at the Washington Post. As Joe had already said, Concord is Sony's expertly crafted big bet. It's just a few years late. I don't think I'll read the entirety of these articles, but I'll kind of jump around a little bit. Starting off, Concord is trying a bit too hard to please everyone. It's evident from the title screen. The game's artwork and topography evoke 1970s science fiction a la Guardians of the Galaxy, but the soundtrack sounds like modern orchestrated elevator music for superheroes, complete with arpeggio synth notes. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Play the game, and you can feel that it's clearly made by people who also made Destiny, trying to make a game like Overwatch. Releasing August 23rd on PlayStation 5 and PC, it's the first game from first-party Sony developer Firewalk Studios, composed of veteran creators of multiplayer shooters. PlayStation has been trying to shore up its multiplayer offerings, and Concord hopes to address a weak point in Sony's catalog. The game was playable in beta form this past weekend and will be again this weekend starting Thursday. Firewalk's pedigree shines through it in the gameplay. The hero shooter genre offers characters that fill different roles with unique abilities, all mixed into a 5-player team to finish objectives. A cat girl in Concord flips and zips around the arena faster as she welds her submachine gun, while a giant armored woman plays defense. If you can't tell, I haven't learned the characters' names yet, and we'll get to that point soon. The game feels like a mix between the floaty movement of a warlock from Destiny and the slow, deliberate ground movement of Valorant, another popular hero shooter by Riot Games. It's like an expertly crafted dish with distinct flavors for well-trained tongues. It's comforting, familiar, and executed well. The problem with Concord, at least from what I can tell from these early offerings, is that it does everything just well enough, but doesn't have the near intangible juice to make this sizzle and stand out from others in the genre. The gameplay design of Concord copies the hero shooter genre popularized by Overwatch, the blockbuster Blizzard Entertainment esports game released in 2016. Unfortunately for Concord, the Overwatch series continues to be popular and has spawned several copycat games, including Valorant and another one starring real superheroes and Marvel rivals releasing later this year. Sony's distinguishing flavor for Concord appears to be its characters and narrative writing. The game promises weekly episodes of cinematic narrative displayed in high-fidelity motion capture with facial animation actors. Overwatch or Valorant can't claim a similar level of production, but these characters lack charisma. Much has been said about how Concord seems to lift the Guardians of the Galaxy archetype straight out of the James Gunn films, and it's true. The sharpest example is the Drax-like character named Starchild. The dialogue and character chemistry so far hews close to the snarky vernacular of Disney-tinged superhero story, and it's really hard to remember who any of these people are. So, I did read most of the article, but there,
about 2 paragraphs.
yeah. And he goes on to mention, the $40 price and the overcrowded market. Something else that we didn't really touch on, too much is, I wonder if you can put it into better words than I can. I think the character roster for this game, the 16 characters, I think they're really, really well designed in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
They look great, sound great facial animations. They have great differences. You got the cat light girl, you got the Lennox alien type ranger guy, you got Starchild, like lots of variety. There's lots of diversity. There's like lots of female characters, different ethnicities, alien characters. So from one sense of a design standpoint, like they're like really peak, but the designs, whatever the word I'm looking for, the design standpoint that says it makes the character memorable or makes it stand out. It seems that almost none of these characters have that. And I don't know why that is. Now, to be fair, Overwatch has been around for 8 years. I played it for a couple weeks.
Yep.
Here's what I know of Overwatch. I know there's Tracer, very iconic character. I know there's an ape named Winston. There's like a little chick and a robot named, I think, Diva.
Yep.
Diva. And then there's
May. There's May with the snow.
See, I didn't remember May, but I remember Reaper because I played as Reaper.
Reinhardt, which is the tank.
The big Reinhardt tank guy. There's Genji. He's kind of like a green ninja.
Hanzo, which is his brother, the archer, bow and arrow.
Okay, I remember him. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
But
Soldier 76. Yep.
Soldier 76. He's more plain. Those characters, like the Overwatch characters, barring Tracer, don't really stand out to me in a way that like Master Chief or Kratos do. Not even close.
Yeah.
But and of course there's been a lot more time for them to be in my memory, but like it's easy for me to remember like, oh, Tracer and the ape and the one in the robot and like
Yep.
Where I feel like there's something not grabbing as much with these characters, and it really could just be that they're so early on, but I don't know.
You know what I think it is? I think this is why it is, that the reason why they're not memorable is because the game doesn't lean so hard into the archetypes of each character, whether it's class-based or whether it's, their abilities of themselves within said class, that they are not memorable in relation to the character's personality and visual design. I think that's the reason. Because this game clearly walks a tightrope, a little rocky. They're rocky on the tightrope when it comes to wanting to lean into the classes, or it wants to lean more into just being a traditional first-person shooter. Yeah. And I think because of that, because you don't lean into your classes, you don't lean into your archetypes, you don't lean into your characters, you kind of blend over too much into a Call of Duty or a Valorant where the characters aren't as memorable as an Overwatch.
It's more just playing about the game than it is. I think you're right.
It's more the guns in front of you rather than the character behind the screen.
It does seem like they want you to know the Freestar Gunners more than they want you to know any particular character. And it's interesting. Of course, now, like for comparison, everybody loves Guardians of the Galaxy now. So I can hear people saying like, oh, I'd love a Rocket movie. But like the thing about the Guardians is what made them so great is it's the four of them, 4 or 5, however many there are, they added like, Mantis or whatever later on.
Yep.
But what it is like a couple weird characters. And when they come together, this group of misfits they make is what's iconic.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what they're going for here, but there's 16 characters and there's less time spent so far focusing on any one of them. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like I there's something to appreciate about them being like, we want a hero shooter where like our game is tuned around playing all the Freestar Gunners and like
Yeah.
being good at the game, like on a truly like meta level, is knowing how to appropriately use the different characters and play different characters all the time. Like there's something to really appreciate there, but like for the market that they're going into, it's so heavily on like choose your hero, identify with your hero, choose this person that you want to become. Like I don't know. Like, okay, like I played as Reaper in Overwatch the brief time. For me though, I was like, okay, I like he's dark, he's cool.
Yeah,
like
he's edgelord.
I like metal. I like, you know, I'm like, okay, yeah. So it's like I don't really want to literally be Reaper, but I'm like, I kind of do want to like, I want to be Reaper.
Yeah.
In this game, I'm like, I played as mostly Teo and Itzy.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a Catwoman. And I don't want to be Teo, like generic Soldier 76 type the guy.
Yep.
So there's nobody that's like grabbing me in that way, you know?
Yeah. The one that grabbed, like, honestly, none of the characters grab me from a visual or like voice acting sense, just simply because like I think personally this is something unrelated to Concord in ways, but also kind of tangentially related in that I'm kind of over my Disney fad, like a lot of people are. So like that humor doesn't really click with me. So every character that is in that game is kind of just like falls in the camp of like, well, that's just James Gunn humor. And that sounds reductive, which it is, but like that's how I interpret it, like instinctually. Like I don't really need to play this for these characters, which is fine. So I'm going to pick whatever gun I like the most and the abilities I like the most. And obviously I didn't get enough time to actually like pick what I liked, but from the short amount of time I played, I liked the woman with the crossbow. She was fucking dope. And I liked the Lennox guy.
Hamar, that's her name. I just remembered.
Okay,
yeah, Hamar.
And the revolver ranger green guy, you know, Lennox, like, and I think the reason is because what was in front of the screen, it wasn't what was behind the screen. It wasn't like like the character's voice acting. It wasn't the visuals of the character. It was just that I could, you know, tango with the rest of the, you know, my opponents with that crossbow and that flame wall that she puts down and stuff. And it was like, that's so much better than others. But I think in many ways, if you're going to make a hero shooter, it's like, why even bother making a hero shooter if I feel like more of the emphasis here is on like the mechanical ingenuity in many ways than the characters. Yeah. It's weird because this is what I'm saying. It's like it's an odd kind of game because like there's part of the game that is like really like all about like motifs and like characters and everything is like story related and character related and it's clearly like fleshed out and there's like so much work gone into like the concept art and obviously like and all the designs around all the characters and the narrative and the world and the universe. But then there's like the other side of it to me, which is more like, okay, this is a PvP shooter now and you've just got to like sweat the shit out of this game and go hard. And to me, those two things in this game kind of like butt heads a little bit when it comes to what this game is trying to overall achieve. And it just feels like, again, like I go back to it just feels muddy. But yeah,
I think it's a whole like jack of all trades, master of none. Because like the studio is made up of such veterans, like everything we see on screen is so high quality, like from visuals to like mechanics. But it seems like it is trying to dip its toe into like 5 different areas.
Yes.
You know,
which is something that like we spoke about in previous podcast episodes. We were like this. Well, I especially, I don't know if you said this, Brian, I'm sure you did, but it was like a conversation about this game but being a hodgepodge of so many different games and that potentially working because it might take the best from every game. And while it does take a lot of good from every other game, it doesn't quite make its own unique like
it hasn't coalesced into something new
and something worthy of playing for the majority of people. And it's a shame because like, I'd love nothing more than this game to like, because I'm in this weird position where I'd love to play this game for £40, but I'm worried that if I buy it for £40, it won't last long enough for me to get my money's worth.
You know, I debated on saying it, but you just you took the words out of my mouth. Like I have no problem buying this for $40, like exactly right now, totally. But I'm like, if I buy it for $40 and there's not a player base and they don't support the game, and that sounds so shitty for me to say because it's like I'm jumping to conclusions, but I'm like, it does not take a rocket scientist to see that the perception of this game from inception to now has just been honestly getting worse.
Yes,
you know, which just sucks. But it's like,
this is the first game I've ever played or ever like been anticipating. Like truthfully, where I've worried about the fact that it won't have any players at launch before it launched. I've never had that before. I don't think. Like I've never worried about.
Just like, oh yeah, the players will be there at launch. Just will they be there 2 weeks later?
Yeah, but like I said, the writing is so on the wall with this that I'm just kind of like, I'm scared for my wallet. And if I'm scared for my wallet, like, as someone who is somewhat very much anticipating this game, what are people that are really negative on this game going to be? They're just going to be like, I'm out. Bye. See ya.
Yeah.
So yeah, scary for Firewalk.
Okay.
And yeah.
Let's read this one other article and try to sum up our thoughts quickly so we can get into a couple other things. We really would. I don't know who out there is like desperately wanting to hear an hour and a half of our thoughts on Concord, but like we have talked about Concord a lot today in another podcast. So
yeah,
I don't know. We just enjoy talking about it. This comes from PC Gamer from not Gene Park, but Morgan Park. I don't think they're related.
Long lost brother.
I played 7 hours of Concord this weekend and immediately want back in. My eyes were wide and WASD fingers nimble as I booted up Concord's closed beta this weekend. I've had my eye on Sony's new hero shooter since its big reveal last month. While a vocal contingent quickly decided that Concord is an Overwatch clone wearing Guardians of the Galaxy cosplay, those brief glimpses of gameplay got me excited for what looked like a crisp, arcadey FPS from ex-Destiny folks. And hey, I wasn't disappointed. Concord is very fun so far. I have played 7 hours of the beta and was impressed by developer Firewalk Studios' strong FPS fundamentals. Concord's guns feel tremendous across the board, especially Lennox's revolvers. Every hero I've played has a fun hook I don't instantly recognize from other games. Maybe best of all is that the whole roster is just there from the start. The closed beta is over now, and I'm really eager to get back to it when the open beta begins on July 18th. But I have a few doubts too. Some takeaways after 7 hours with Concord. Concord has more in common with Call of Duty than Overwatch. Concord's roster of heroes, with their varying sizes, species, and backgrounds, might give the initial impression of an Overwatch also ran, but their similarities end once you get past the heroes themselves. In reality, Concord has more in common with modern arena shooters like Call of Duty, X-Defiant, Destiny 2's Crucible, or even Halo. That's made clear by the handful of modes playable in the beta, a grab bag of FPS favorites like Team Deathmatch, Takedown, Kill Confirmed, Trophy Hunt, Search and Destroy, Cargo Run, and an elimination take on King of the Hill called Clash Point. It's smart to stick together as much as possible, but unlike Overwatch, you're not encouraged to stay in one massive hero clump to have any chance of winning fights. You don't always spawn near teammates in Concord's multi-laned or bowl-shaped maps, and some heroes work best as lone wolves. See, I kind of disagree with that entirely, which is weird.
Yeah.
I think you do too as well.
I think some heroes like the sniper class. Is that's the black chick, right? Like with the
Veil.
Yeah. I think she works on her own really well, picking off people around the map, staying around the sides. But I think the majority of the classes seemingly work better together.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just going to kind of go through the top level points here for the rest of the stuff, and we'll kind of get a conclusion. Mm-hmm. Every hero has a niche, but they're all pretty lethal. The default PC settings are whack. I've heard that from people that there's like issues with the PC settings. Also, there's not as many options as wanted on the console. Like there's no FOV slider at all on the console where there's in the PC.
Yep.
Concord's hero variants are a neat way to offer different builds of a single character. The crew system is really confusing and maybe pointless. So this kind of talks about where we're like, okay, the variance is like very different. Haven't seen this before. This is new, but is it worth it? It's kind of confusing. What's the point?
Gimmicky, maybe?
Yeah, it does seem a bit gimmicky. Like when you just see like 3 of the same hero below and they all look the same, they play the same. It's like, oh, they get a different perk. It's like, Concord's guns are top notch. I agree. I had a great time with the guns. Dodging is neat. This is what I loved the third person. This goes to what Joe said. Dodging is neat, but is third person really necessary? Like for me, I dodged more because I love that. But I get it for like, more hardcore people maybe. The respawn modes rock, but Concord's round-based modes are super sluggish right now. I end up sticking mostly to Concord's respawn modes this weekend, and that's because its elimination modes move way too slowly right now. There are just way too many pre-round steps. Every round has a pick phase where each player picks one at a time in order, followed by a loading screen, then an intro cinematic, then a countdown. It's kind of what we talked about. I like to think I have a high tolerance for this sort of thing with my 2,000 hours logged in Rainbow Six Siege, but Concord's sluggish transitions wore me down quick. This is a fixable problem, so I'm curious how quickly Firewalk will be able to respond to feedback just a month before Concord's launch. No matter how beautiful those intro cutscenes are, I have to say, I think it's just clear with this, as much as you're seeing it, it's got to be cut back. It's got to be, maybe, 100%. I don't even know if this is that, well, no, it couldn't be because it's online. I was going to say maybe every time you boot the game, it happens once, but no, I guess it just needs to be, maybe if you've played, I guess I don't know how they would do it. How would you ever show it if not everyone was experiencing it? I guess you'd have to remove it entirely forever, which is like unfortunate. But
It might have to be like a temporary strip away to like just a loading screen because like the best
use
they
it for
can.
use it for a training mode, which they didn't have in the beta, but
Maybe, and then probably replace it with something more succinct and maybe. I mean, if they can like make something like Titanfall where you're first person in that spaceship and you drop through, that would be super dope. There's something about looking through the eyes of a character in those little intro cutscenes that are way better than watching the same animations over and over again.
Yeah,
because it doesn't feel like it's loading. It feels like it's like you're just in the game, like you're in. It's part of the match.
Even if it is loading, it's not loading the whole time. They're definitely showing more cutscene just for the sake of the cutscene. Than
So I don't know how they would fix it, but they have to because people are going to get really bored with that.
Yeah. Well, final thoughts, Joe. What do you think we'll see from another weekend of Concord? Free for everyone, open beta.
I think naturally you're going to get like a way more open like test because it's not going to be a focus test as it once was. You're probably going to get as many people saying it's not as good as they thought it would be, like people have already been saying. As much as people are saying it's what they really like, because when you open it up to everyone, it's just like a free for all of people. And then here's the thing as well, like with gamers and stuff, and also like with the fact that it is an open beta and they've got no strings attached to like pre-ordering this game. A lot of them that will be coming in now. I mean, it's open right now, right? Like it's open to play. It's been open to play, I think, for 2 hours.
Concord? Is it?
I think so. Yeah.
I guess because it's Thursday. You're right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
I'm probably going to jump in after this, to be honest.
Yeah,
but,
I'm actually. I might as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where like I think you're going to get some very raw reactions immediately from people that, like I said, who have no horse in the race when it comes to either any form of confirmation bias on either side. Hopefully people take to it more. Do we know if the open beta is just more of the early access? Like there's no more features?
I'm pretty sure there's more. I'm pretty sure
there's more. Okay.
I think so. I thought so. Yeah.
Okay, well, if that's the case, that's really cool because that'll just like boost perception, I think, innately. Mm-hmm. But I think aside from the beta itself, like it's really hard because like Sony acquired this studio, and I think it was like April 2023 or some shit like that, right? Like obviously it was within the Jim Ryan era of live service, like hardcore push, and it would be a shame for this game to flop, for Firewalk to. I really don't want this to happen because they are such a talented team, and I can tell by the way this game is made. I just don't think they've like got lightning in a bottle with this game particularly well. That's all. I don't think they haven't hit gold yet with it, and it would be such a shame for this game to cause like either remanagement in this studio or some form of like layoffs or whatever, because, and I'm not saying that like because obviously it's going to happen, but it's something that is so common in the AAA industry right now when something of this budget fails or flops. And I really hope this game does well for Firewalk so that they can make another game, because I have confidence, like this is their first game like working together, and there's always going to be teething issues when it comes to a company working this tightly on a project this large immediately, whether it's like gaming or something else entirely. And I think that like if they can get just enough to get through, hopefully more, of course, that would be better to obviously fund a second game and everyone stays together, stays tight knit, keeps the morale up in that studio. I really hope they can get through and make a second game, because the second game, if it's Concord 2 or it's something else entirely single player driven, I think that's going to be the time when we really see what Firewalk can do as a team, learning everything they have from Concord. Yeah. And I just really hope that's the case, and if this game near launch looks more promising, I'm definitely willing to spend like £40. I think for me personally, somewhat my experience with this is this open beta this weekend, because I'll have more time to play it, will be the final nail in the coffin as to whether I buy it at launch or not. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really pressing that this beta impresses me and I get along with it. Yeah. Because as much as I want to support this studio, I'm not necessarily going to want to buy a game that I don't think will, one, have a future, and two, I won't like. And I don't think anyone can necessarily blame me for that.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that's as a consumer that you just have to, think and use your brain when making purchases.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would wager, and I could be completely wrong. I would wager that like Sony doesn't need Concord to be the most successful thing ever
No.
to be happy. But my thing is like just pulling numbers out of my ass. If it's like Sony's like, okay, if we can just sell 3 million in the first year, this is enough to be worth it. But like my problem is, but what if they sell like 700,000 copies? You know, I'm like, that's like, you know what I mean? Like there's making a couple million, like selling a couple million, and then there's like not even clearing a million. I'm like, and I just don't know. I mean, just on the perception. And I think we'll know a lot better after the open beta, because like I said, it's really like kind of unfair to go off of like just the where you had to pre-order it only. Cause I mean, it is a new IP, it's PvP only. They hadn't shown much off. So I'm interested.
I feel like the marketing has not been big enough for them to like get a proper capture of pre-orders and in this stuff. I think, I don't know. Obviously, we don't know the inner workings of like Sony marketing, PlayStation marketing in relation to these studios, but I think in many ways, like if I was to put a blame on someone, I think PlayStation haven't really backed this game in the way they should have potentially.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't put it out there enough to people, and I think we're seeing that in terms of how little people are playing it, and how little people know about it. I mean, like my friends didn't even know about the game. Like, in the people I camp with, they had no clue, and they're decent gamers. You know, they play Elden Ring, they play Call of Duty. They're into their PvP games. It's just that they didn't even hit their radar.
There's something about like I've scrolled by this, like I have like a Facebook ad for Concord, and I've scrolled by it and like had to like second check myself because I didn't notice it was there. Like I don't know, something about like because I actually love like the 70s look and stuff and the name.
Dude, like the Commodore 64 kind of shit going on. It's fucking dope. Like,
but I there's something with the marketing or the way they've got the word of this game out. But we'll revisit it on the next podcast. I'm proud of us for covering it like this though, because I did say just a moment ago, I'm like, how many people are wanting to hear a podcast talk an hour and a half just about Concord, but I'm like, this is one of Sony's biggest games this year. Really the only other game that compares from a first party perspective is Astrobot, and Astrobot has a completely different
vibe
to clear, than this does. So this is huge. It's a new team, and it's Sony's big first party game. So I'm glad we've covered it. I'm proud of that. But Joe, let's go over into what we're playing. I finished up Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Ooh.
I won't spoil what the final boss is, but like the final boss was like the big sticking point.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable saying that I like did easy mode on the final boss.
Okay, Mimic, yeah.
But I don't know if I would call it cheesing. You tell me, Joe. What I did was I got the fingerprint shield from the base game, which is this giant shield that if you fully upgrade it, you can take 0 damage.
Yeah,
you take huge stamina hits, but you take 0 health damage because it's this huge stone shield. So I got that shield, fully upgraded it. Then I got this like lance from the DLC that you can poke people with, and I fully upgraded it. And I went in and fought the final boss by basically having my shield up, poking at the boss, and taking breaks to make sure my stamina didn't run out, making sure if I got hit to heal. And there is 2 different points in the final fight where you have to do something specific to not die. And I did both of those things successfully, and I made it through the whole battle and beat the boss. I did not use a mimic either. But to be fair, a lot easier than if I was playing it any other way. I was I had my shield up poking the boss. So I'm fine if people want to say I cheesed the boss. Like I'm not upset by that. I don't know if it's technically a cheese, but it's definitely an easy way to do it. But I beat the DLC, love the DLC, and what I want to say, Joe, is I think I like the DLC better than the base game.
Wow.
Yeah, I really do.
Why?
Couple things. I think that the map is better designed.
Okay.
We've talked about how it has so many pointlessly open spaces, but I've spent a lot of time in the base game also. It has way less pointless open spaces than the base game does. It's much more closer together. It's much more tightly designed. I love the legacy dungeons that are in this DLC. I think the bosses are much higher quality overall than the total of the base game.
Okay.
And this is a shocker to me because at first I thought it was annoying. I loved searching for the Scatter Tree fragments. I thought that was fun. Like, it was great to, like, where in the world are these fragments? What crazy thing do you have to do? Do you have to go kill this dude with a pot on his head? You have to go to this underground cavern and search beneath some bones. Like, I love searching for that stuff. I love the bosses. I love the narrative. It actually felt like more narrative heavy than most of what FromSoft has done.
Yep.
I think it was the best part of Elden Ring. Like, this is, I think for my favorite Souls games, it would go, I would go Bloodborne, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Shadow of the Erd Tree. Like, number 4, that DLC, you know. Okay. So I loved it. But yeah, anyways, what are you going to say about my cheap tactics?
I was just going to say, like, as a conversation to the greater Soulsborne community, the one thing we need to fucking get better at in general, not necessarily me, because I'm literally putting this forth. I'm the best. We need to do more of one thing, have nuance when we talk about different builds. We are no longer in the realm of Dark Souls pyromancy and iron flesh and all that shit back in the day, right? And like, we are like so far into Elden Ring where, yes, there are unbalanced things, but ultimately everything in Elden Ring, given what Miyazaki has said, is shit that he wants in the game and thinks should be in the game.
Totally.
And it's stuff he would use. And I think what
you can choose how challenging you want it to be.
We need to stop looking at like no mimics, no summons, no bullshit builds, you know, level 1 stuff, all that crap. Like the baseline, if you don't want to use any assistance, right? You got to look at that like it's like the baseline and not the bar to achieve. And then everything else, like after that, is a bonus. Like, and then the same goes for like the assistance. So like, if you have summons, you have the stuff you did, like the fingerprint shield and stuff, we shouldn't like knock people down for that stuff because it's clearly intended. That all should be like on the level of just like doing the game normally. Or in many ways, like I go one step further. If you play the game with no summons and like, you know, you don't use bullshit builds or whatever, like, and you're like really, really fair. And if you want to go extra miles, obviously it goes up in terms of how awesome you are.
Guitar Hero controller,
all that shit, like dance pad and all that stuff. Like, if you want to get to that point and you want to do that stuff, like, yeah, pat yourself on the back, like, but don't at the same time like put your fellow Souls gamers down.
I agree 100%.
Because they decided not to go that route. Like,
I agree 100%, but I also do think that, like, you know, you should be able to tolerate the criticism as well. Like, I agree. I think we should all just play Souls, and however you beat it, that's great. Like, I'm glad you're here. Like, let's get rid of the get good mentality. I'm totally with you, Joe.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, you know, you should be able to have the tolerance if somebody gives you crap. Like, if Joe's like, well, I beat the final boss, you know, naked with no summons, and I never got hit once. Like, that is way more impressive than what I did. Actually, just him beating the final boss normally without the fingerprint shield is more impressive than what I did. And like, it's okay. Like, I can acknowledge that, like, oh, what you did was much more challenging, and I either couldn't have done it or it would have took me a lot of time to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because a lot of people were like, you know, it should be fine to use summons. And then someone's like, well, I beat him with no summons. And they're like, it's like, okay, but he did though. But he did beat it without summons, and that was harder. Like, just as he shouldn't take away from you that you beat the game truthfully, you shouldn't try to take away from him that he made it harder and succeeded. Like, I am not good at Souls. I don't need to prove anything.
Yeah, it's different strokes for different folks, like, truly. And
I guarantee you couldn't beat it with the Guitar Hero controller.
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
I doubt it.
Try me.
So,
imagine,
like, no,
dude, imagine me beating it. I couldn't.
Go do it. I'm challenging you. Double dog dare.
Dude, I'd have to like really like relearn the entire game on that controller. Like, I would just jump into the final boss.
Okay, there's another angle, right? Like, honestly, maybe anybody could do the Guitar Hero controller if they invested years of practice in their life.
Literally,
but I don't want
time.
to.
It's time. Like, that's the thing. Like, these games aren't like anything in life is just practice. Like, practice makes perfect. You know, like, people are born talented 100%, but skill is earned. And like, Dark Souls is just like, I don't know, learning to drift a fucking drift car, or learning to race, or fucking, I don't know, something as simple as like fucking learning how to cook a spaghetti. Like, you're not born knowing how to fucking make a nice carbonara. but you learn it as you go. And that applies to everything in life, and it applies for Soulsborns and Souls-likes in every single game in the world. You know, like when I first started Sekiro, I was fucking shit. Like, there wasn't a part of me that was like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna fucking be able to 1v1 Ishin with 3 heals like I did when I got the platinum. But I did eventually.
Yeah.
And the feeling I got when I did it was awesome. But it doesn't also mean that like that's the only way to play, that you have to be like this masochistic, sadistic, like mentally harming individual just because you want to be as good as the rest of them. Like,
and isn't it strange that like that's so specific to Souls? Because like you can do that in just about any game, right? Like,
yeah,
like
it's the culture, dude. Like
I mean, if people say they beat Halo 2 campaign, like you don't really hear people go like, did you do legendary all skulls on? Oh, well then you didn't beat the game. Like that doesn't it's only Souls, right? Like, or even you can even go further, like, oh, did you beat it legendary all skulls on and you never used a weapon? You just melee'd? It's like, okay, like that's basically what we're doing with Souls, but for some reason it's only that game. Probably because the base level of Souls is so much harder. Like to be fair, like
one difficulty.
When I fought the final boss with the fingerprint shield and the spear poking him, that was still harder than like, I don't know, a boss in Halo. It's still harder. I'm not saying that it was super difficult or I should be praised. I'm just like, it's still at a base level more difficult, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I don't know. I think we just all need to be a little bit more like accepting of various different play styles, because ultimately, like, our silence and just us talking to the studio back and forth rather than at each other and arguing over petty shit like that is going to make FromSoft take notes and make a better game as they go. Yeah, like, because they'll take the feedback as it gets. We don't need to be having little mini wars over summons or no summons and bullshit builds over other builds.
And they're not going to put in an easy difficulty because of your tweet. They're not going to, especially when they're only getting vastly more successful as time goes on. Like nothing about money talks, right? Nothing about the money is telling them to make this game easier at all.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So, yeah, dude. I mean, that's awesome. I'm glad you completed it, because I know you were like kind of teetering on the idea of not completing it, right, and just like moving on.
Yeah, because when I got to the final boss, I got there like in less than 10 hours, and I had barely any scatter tree fragments, and this boss is extremely hard. Yeah. I've heard everyone say that I've literally not heard one person disagree that the final boss of Shadow of the Erdtree is either the hardest Souls boss ever or second to Ishin. That's what everyone. I've never heard one person disagree with that. It's either that boss or Ishin.
I'm shitting myself.
Yeah. But so I ended up like deep diving and like just exploring the heck out of that DLC. Fell in love with it. This made me like Elden Ring more overall. I really enjoyed it. And then there's a really awesome PlayStation sale went up yesterday, the summer sale, and I got Nier Replicant for $23 down from $60, which got me really excited because I want to play that since I'm a fan of Nier Automata now. Looking forward to playing that. I also got Death Stranding Director's Cut for PS5 for $20. And because I have that and not Metal Gear yet, I think my first Kojima game is going to be Death Stranding, Joe. I think it's going to be
me, bro.
I think I'm going to love it though. I think I'm really going to love it. I'm excited to get to that. So I got 2 great games for like just over $40. Everybody should check out that PlayStation sale. They got so much good stuff on there. Other stuff I want to buy, I don't have the money for right now. Like they got Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart for $23 or something like that, $29 maybe. They got all kinds of good stuff. Metal Gear Collection's on sale too, but it's still on sale for $43. I want it cheap.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
So and then I started for the first time Ghost of Tsushima. I'm finally playing through Ghost of Tsushima. And dude,
talk at me.
You know what's surprising to me? So when Ghost of Tsushima came out in 2020, I was like, that game looks cool. I don't need it right now, but it looks cool. I'm going to ask for it for Christmas. So for Christmas 2020, Erica, my wife, got me Ghost of Tsushima. And I decided within a week of getting it, I'm not really interested in playing it. One of the big turnoffs, oddly enough for me, I know it seems weird, was the multiple stances. I'm like, I don't want to screw around with combat with multiple stances. I was like, I just want to fight. Now, upon playing the game, I'm realizing that they're not that complicated and you can kind of do what you want. But then I was also, I don't know, maybe I just wasn't into the like whole like Japanese culture in that moment of my game playing.
The animes brought you in.
Right. So Erica went on to play Ghost of Tsushima, my Christmas present that I didn't feel like playing. She went on to play it, 100%ed it, platinumed it. Erica loved Ghost of Tsushima.
Erica.
She loved it so much, and she's like sung its praises for years. And then I started to get interested.
Before you go on, sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
How often does she platinum or 100% games? Or is that a rarity?
Like, very rare. That might be her only one. Yeah.
Wow. Hell yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Now, I don't know how it works on PlayStation. She hasn't played the DLC yet that came after she platinumed it, so I don't know if it'll still show she has the platinum or not. Does it take away your platinum?
No. You should still have the platinum. I've got the platinum, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so like as time's gone on, I've started to get more interested in it, and I was like, okay, now that I got, I had what was I played Nier Automata.
Mm-hmm.
I got Stellar Blade out of the way. I beat Shadow of the Erd Tree. I'm like, okay, time for Ghost of Tsushima. I got the full deluxe edition PS5. Started playing it, and then I was like, 5 minutes into the game, and I'm like, why the fuck didn't I play this earlier?
Dude, I told you.
Dude, this is so good. And then now I'm like 2 hours in. Like I barely had any time to play, but now I'm like 2 hours in. I'm like, this game is so freaking, like, the story's compelling, the characters are cool, the world's beautiful, the combat's fun. I'm like, what? I think I'm gonna love this game. Like,
it is a mind-blowingly good game, dude.
Somebody in the Discord just beat it recently. I don't know if it was Boba's Feet. Somebody
Boba's Feet, yeah.
Okay. And they were like, oh, game was great, 8 out of 10. And based on my 2 hours, I was like, 8 out of 10. What's wrong with him? It's got to be at least a 9, right? Or 10. But what is it? What is it to you?
I think like, here's the thing. I always say the games on my top 50 are definitely 10 out of 10, no doubt. They all have to be on that. So, like, for me, subjectively, it's a 10. Obviously, there's discrepancies.
It seems better than an 8 to me.
I would say I would say objectively, you could argue a 9, but I don't think it's any lower than that. I mean, the only way I could say you go in 8 is if, like, you really don't like Ubisoft games, because it's kind of in that era. Like,
I can tell it's kind of like, but the crazy thing is, like, I've played some Assassin's Creed, and like, I looked over at my wife, and I'm like, have you ever played Assassin's Creed games? She's like, no, and I'm like, this seems just like them, but like way better, and it's their first try.
I'm telling you, I think kind of you're seeing that now. Like, you're seeing the fact that everyone was like calling for. Obviously, you heard about like people wanting Japan Assassin's Creed. Yeah. But then, like, now you're playing Ghost of Tsushima, you're probably kind of seeing what I've been saying for ages, and that you don't really need Shadows. Like,
there's an extremely small chance that Shadows is better than this game. Very small. Like, just by the simple fact it's not narratively focused on one character. Let alone the fact that it's Ubisoft formula. But yeah, the game's amazing. I've only played like 2 hours. Like, I've done, you guys understand, I got a long way to go. I've been very busy with being sick and family stuff. And but the last thing I did was like very early in the game, there was like a bridge with like a person in the center of the bridge that was being like ambushed by arrows.
Yes.
And I had to like take everyone out. That was so much fun. The horse is awesome. The game's beautiful. I love it, dude. And I was like, yes. I was like, open world, third person fun. You would laugh so hard, Joe. You would have been so proud of me. So many times I was playing this and Erica's watching. I'm like, I love this game. There's no fucking dinosaur robots. I love this game. There's no fucking. And I would shoot a human. And I'm like, I'm so glad you're not a fucking dinosaur robot. I'm like, because I just, people don't understand this, but like, I buy the Horizon games and I play them. Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. I buy them and I play them and I have fun. I will buy the third game and I will have fun. I may even buy the Horizon Lego game and I'll have fun. But I'm not a fan of that franchise. I don't like the characters. I don't like the robots. I don't like the premise. I don't like, it's just fun to play. I don't know. It's like garbage. I don't know.
It's a playground.
Doesn't anybody have garbage games they just like to play? Like, that's what Horizon is to me. I'm like, I just don't. I wish
I had a garbage game to play.
But because I'm not a fan of Horizon. But yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is so dope. I cannot wait to get to more of it. That's what I'm going to be playing. But Joe, over to you.
No, I want to ask one last thing. What did you think to the intro where like the music crescendos and the title card drops and you play? Dude, I'm telling you,
the scenery, bro. Oh my gosh, it was like the whole game. The game's like fluorescent as hell. It's like, and every leaf, I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful. Look at the leaves.
Like, everything's physics based and the leaves and shit. It's like, oh my God, brothers. Like, what's like to go from Sly and fucking Infamous? Like, I mean, Sly's really good.
Okay, you don't know. I don't know if this is fair because I've barely played any Sly or Infamous, but this is my outside perception of Sucker Punch.
Okay.
During the Sly days, I'm like, those guys are awesome. Sly Cooper's awesome, even though I've never really played him much.
Yeah, I think I know what you're going to say.
Then they get to Infamous, and I'm like, this studio's lame as hell. Because I thought Infamous was one of the like lamest games ever. I've played some of it. I've seen a lot of it. Yeah. I was like, boring ass white dude, like generic superhero. Nothing about this game looks good to me. Then they do Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm like, yo, you could. This is the Sly Cooper guys.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I probably need to watch like a retrospective or something so somebody could explain to me the deep love for Infamous, but that series just seemed like a wet fart to me. Just like, no.
I don't know what Infamous was. There was always something about Infamous to me that felt like it was just trying to capitalize on like that prototype era of like running around in the open world going crazy, which it definitely takes massive inspiration from a gameplay sense. But
I even hate his name. Isn't it like Cole McGrath?
I don't fucking know, dude. I never properly played them. Ugh,
like, go put out a country album, bro. I'm not here for it. So.
I'm so glad you're loving it, dude, because I was like, obviously there's not many games where you play like a historical based stuff, right? Like a lot of it's fantasy or sci-fi, and I was kind of like going like back and forth between like, would Bryan like that stuff like fully, like, but I'm glad you do, because
what I think's kind of funny though is like, I know the whole premise is like his honor and like not going against his honor and all that, but like I felt like I was like 45 minutes in the game and he's like, oh, my honor. And then I go up and assassinate someone. It's like, I had to. I was like,
oh yeah, there is like,
it didn't take long.
There is like some form of like ludonarrative dissonance in many ways to that game, but it kind of has to go. But the cool thing about it is it doesn't just stop at like assassinating people. It does get worse like as he goes. Not like that he becomes an evil bastard, because he doesn't, but he leans more into subterfuge and stuff, and it just becomes so fucking cool to see the sort of difference between him and his uncle and stuff. It's great cool.
It's great that I'm starting to learn him as a character, because all I've known about him for years is his butt cheeks.
Yes,
because
in the hot springs.
I'd watch Erica play it, and like I'd never pay attention to it, but like when the screen's in front of my face, like I'm always drawn to like, whoa, there's a naked man on my screen, and it's like I've just seen a lot of that dude's butt cheeks and never knew his character. But now I'm like, oh, I care about you and your butt cheeks. Awesome.
Yep. He's got some nice supple butt cheeks, does Jin Sakai. Yeah.
It looks good in that hot tub. That looks
that look good.
That look good, yeah. So what have you been playing, Joe?
Just Jedi Survivor. Again.
I feel like Ghost of Tsushima is better than Jedi Survivor.
Oh yeah, 100%. Sorry, Wes. Yeah, it's a great game though. Like I am enjoying it still.
I like it a lot.
The complaints I originally gave it are still present, but like I'm not focusing on them as much. I'm not getting as much Grease T-posing when I take off in the Mantis, which is good.
So wild you're having those issues.
So a lot of the bugs are kind of chilling out a little bit. Obviously, I'm still getting the 20 frames per second in the cutscenes, but I'm not going to go on about them because I've already made those known. And also, I don't really like to focus on the negatives too much because it just sounds like I'm just ranting, when actually I'm thoroughly enjoying this game now. You know, it's kind of opening up a lot more. I'm sticking more to the golden path of the game a little bit, since I've done a lot of Kobo already. So I've just done the Lucre Hulk mission, where you go to like that big droid ball sack that's crash landed. I fought, I mean, this is full spoilers, so I mean the game's been out for a while, not that I'm near the end or anything, I don't think, but I've just fought Dagan Gera again, the one-armed fallen Jedi, Dark Jedi, whatever you want to call him. So that was cool. Another fight with him, beat him first time because I'm just fucking amazing. And it's just cool. Like, I'm enjoying the game. I'm enjoying Cal Kestis's character, the Ginger Jedi. I'm getting more comfortable with the game's like flow and I love. One thing I will say about this game is like it has really cool attention to like parkour in that, like I think things like Elden Ring and other Souls games could take. You know, like I bag on it into like, shout out to Wesley with this, but like I bag on it in relation to Souls games, Soulsborne games. But I think like if FromSoft could take something mechanically like wall running or whatever from obviously don't lean too far into it that it becomes a gimmick and it becomes stupid, like a Batman Arkham Knight Batmobile gimmick or some shit, but like if they could take little elements and make their own form of what Jedi Survivor has with its parkour in across whether it's a new Dark Souls or whatever or a new Sekiro, would be so. I think it would work in Sekiro because he's already a nimble motherfucker in that. Yeah. So like you could make a Sekiro 2 or something like that and it'd be like, oh dude, that's so cool, like wall running, and obviously he has a grapple already, so that could play into it more. And yeah, dude, like I think it's really cool. I think it's got a cool story. I like Merrin and Cal's relationship, even though it kind of feels a little bit forced, like the initial kiss that
You know what's crazy? I know Josh felt that same way, and I've heard people say it online, and you feel that way. I have very little attachment to Star Wars. I played the game. I didn't feel forced to me. I don't know.
It doesn't bother me. Like I wasn't like, what the fuck? That doesn't seem right. But like at the same time, I wasn't like, oh yeah, like that seems earned or that seems like necessary. I just felt like it was kind of in the middle road of like, well, that kind of didn't need to happen, but like, okay, we've established some form of like relationship here already, and obviously then that stuff bleeds into like Bo's relationship with with Cal later on, how he talks
Mhm.
about like running away with Merrin and stuff like that, giving him advice. But yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. One thing I do love about Jedi Survivor as well. Another thing is that how just awesome and amazing the environments are for a Star Wars game. Like they really nailed that prequel era stuff. And one thing I will say as well about Survivor is that they really moved away from like in certain elements of it, they've done a good job of like separating the identity of Survivor to being inspired by the prequels, but also has its own little
thing.
Star Wars identity in the environment.
I love that. Stuff. Yeah. I agree. I'm glad you said that. That's one of the reasons why I like Survivor more than Fallen Order.
100%.
I'm sure you probably won't come around to that, but you can see where I'm at least.
I mean, we'll see. Like, I'm slowly warming to the video game, in all honesty. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything like more that's blown my mind. I think one thing that they could have done better is like maybe more cinematic, like big sort of moments. Because like in Fallen Order, I think around the point I've got to the Lucre Hulk, you are like you've hit Kashyyyk and you're with Saw Gerrera and you have that big AT-AT moment.
Yeah. There hasn't been a moment like that. Yeah.
There hasn't been a big like set piece moment like that. It seems more like isolated and character focused. And
I can think of a couple. Obviously, I won't say. I can think of a couple cool ones. So I think you'll definitely get a lot more experience, of course.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I think me sticking to the golden path and stuff like that and mainlining this game has really made me like appreciate it more than I did. And yeah, I'm just thoroughly enjoying it.
Do you agree? Like, I feel like Cal's representation as a character is quite superior to the first game.
It's weird because I think Cal. It's hard because I think Fallen Order Cal is very much like how much do you resonate with him being a nervous, naive, obviously you'll know this, like Padawan in training because he's a Padawan, right? Like in the game, is he a Padawan?
I don't think is he a Padawan? But by the time the game starts, I don't think he is.
I don't know.
Like, you play as him as a Padawan in flashbacks.
Yeah. But anyway, but like he's clearly naive. Even if he's a knight, it's like I mean, I guess the titles go out the window as soon as the Jedi Order fell to pieces anyway, because that was made up by them. It's not like
maybe he was technically a Padawan the last time they were established, so I guess he kind of is. But it's like he's moved on at the same time. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I think ultimately, if you really lean into the idea of Cal finding his way in the galaxy, being this naive, broken individual. Here's the thing. I think that for me personally, I much preferred, from what I know of Fallen Order, like from the entire game I played, I think his arc in Fallen Order is one that I actually really like. Like, I think character-wise, personality-wise, Cal is shit. Like, he's not very interesting to be around. I 100% resonate with what you criticize him for. But at the same time, I thoroughly enjoy, like, his broken off nature. I'm a fan of those kind of characters where they are, like, broken and down and out, and they're kind of underdogs, and they kind of find the light. I resonate with that character quite a lot because in many ways, like obviously I'm not a Jedi, but like I've been in those situations, with like mental illness and depression and stuff in the past in my uni days. And I kind of resonate with that. And I think Jedi Survivor, he is a better character. He is much more fleshed out. He's better written. His dialogue is better, much more interesting. But ultimately, I'm not resonating with his arc as much as I did with Fallen Order, just simply because there's not right now as much going on with Cal as there was in Fallen Order. So if that makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. So that's pretty much all you've been playing, right? Have you jumped into Shadow of the Erdtree at all?
Like, no, dude. I want to get through Jedi Survivor. Like, I want to do it. I want to wrap it up. I'm really enjoying it. So just get it done, and then back to Shadow of the Erdtree. And then after that, I mean, to be honest, by that time, when's Astrobot coming out?
Early September. So yeah, it's a little like a month and a half. Yeah.
I think like by the time I do Shadow of the Erdtree, it's going to be Astrobot, baby. Like,
nice. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that too. I'm going to be really curious how that scores because like I feel like if I had to bet all my money on it, I'd be like, oh, Astrobot 86 to 88 Metacritic,
mid to high 80s, yeah.
But wow, if it's in the 90s, we're going to be like, oh shit,
brother,
cool.
yeah,
it's going to be cool. Okay, so let's go into our special topic here. What do you think, Joe? Spend roughly 20-ish minutes on this? Do you think we can do that? Or okay,
a lot of mine are very succinct. So
yeah, same here. So I'm interested to see if we have any of the same ones. So guys, the point of this special topic is going to be what are some either downright bad or just very disappointing PlayStation 3 exclusives? Kind of a niche topic you wouldn't expect. 2 systems old. kind of leaning on more what are bad or disappointing. That can go either way. It could be something really bad, like where it's like, oh, this is a beer pong game for the PS3 and it's just bad. Or it can be like, oh, people expected a lot out of this and it was just very mid, if that. So I'll let you go first. What is your first game up, Joe?
I'm starting with probably like the one I care about the least. And I said not to include this one, but Haze.
Okay, there you go. You brought it up.
I had to.
The Halo killer.
The Halo killer, the supposed Halo killer. I mean, what to say? This game basically ticks every single box of what not to do with a first-person shooter. It's got a boring protagonist. It's got boring characters. It's got boring, bland gunplay. It's got incredibly poor AI that makes Call of Duties look like it's made from, like, it's Fear's AI, you know? Mm-hmm. It's just an uninspired, overtly hyped by the publications at the time that had previews Halo killer, and it was just bad as well. Like in terms of the motifs that was going on in that game, like it had like elements of like PTSD going on with like the nectar, and it just looked ugly. Like the textures were so flat. It was just like, I'm starting off with this one because it's the one I have probably the least to say, alongside with my second one, to be honest. But just to start us off as a taster, because the others are so much more fleshed out, in my opinion, from what I can say about them. This game was just not good, dude. It was everything that was not meant to be a PS3 game, and the multiplayer as well was poor. You know, like the vehicle combat was bad.
Yeah,
there was just nothing about it, in my opinion, that did anything good.
Honestly, I think the best thing about the game is it had a cool title and a cool cover art.
I would 100% agree. I think that cover art had no right to be with that game. It was too good.
Yeah, the cover art and the name were going to, because like picture, like, I mean, you're thinking like, you know, Halo, badass title, badass cover. This was Haze. That's a pretty cool title. Yeah, pretty cool cover.
Memorable.
You play the game and it's like, okay, this is not it.
It was just not good. I remember the sound design like tweaking out as well when I played it. Like I don't know if it was just like I had a rare case of a bug or whatever, but like the sound design would just like go all crackly when I started shooting and stuff, and it'd be like, I'd be like the guy on the cover. I'd be like, ah, like this is not good. So that's kind of like our intro to the worst.
Okay, well this might be interesting because I feel like you've probably taken the direction of bad more than I have. I've taken more disappointing.
Oh, okay.
So my first one is for the PS3 exclusive, Mag.
Oh, that's a fucking good one.
Okay. Yeah, because
I played it.
For those of you that don't know, this was a like massively multiplayer first-person shooter, like something that would maybe compete with like a Call of Duty. But the difference here is, and this is on in the PS3 generation,
crazy
support for up to 256 players in one match.
Yep.
And it was this really cool idea, but it was a combination of just, I don't know, being ahead of its time, that developer's capabilities, marketing, the name. It mostly, you know, it got some excitement, got some traction, came out, had some time online, but it was discontinued 3 or 4 years after it came out. Mm-hmm. It's online only, so there's no way to even play it in any sense. You can't even go play some kind of offline mode. It's just gone.
Yeah.
But just the fact that in 2010 we had a 256 player online first-person shooter for consoles, very cool idea, but it was just disappointing because it couldn't live up to what it was going to be. It says right here on Wikipedia, Mag received an award from Guinness World Records as most players in a console FPS. With 256 players.
So like everyone always talks about, like, just to give you guys reference for people that don't play PvP shooters, and especially not all the time, obviously I love things like Battlefield, Call of Duty. You know, I've just predicated my point on all the PvP shooters I played, given we just talked about Concord. But like at the time, Xbox 360 had Battlefield 3 out, right, which is the 7th generation, the same generation and stuff like that. And that game only had 32 people per team. That was it. So you had 64 players, and even that was pushing the Battlefield 3 Frostbite engine massively, and also the console. And obviously PC had like 64 players, all that shit, you know, crazy stuff. Actually, I think I stand corrected. It was 16 versus 16, so it was 32 players in total in a lobby for Battlefield 3, whereas PC at the time had 64 players in total. So that's the correct amount.
We're still talking nowhere near this.
Nowhere near amount, and Mag had like 256. It was fucking wild, dude. Like, it was absolutely wild. And I remember playing it, and it just had so many like bugs and server issues, and the hit scan was terrible. Like, hitboxes were bad. Like, you couldn't hit anyone. Like, it was just not a very good game. It was actually developed by Zipper, the people who make Sockem, which is a legendary studio that is now closed down on the PlayStation. Which leads me on to not my next one, but one of them in my list. But yeah, Mag, crazy time. I remember that game coming out and being like, oh my god, because I was young, dude, when that came out. Yeah, wild.
Yeah, dude, that was 14 years ago. So yeah. You would have been a little tyke.
Yep. It was, dude, how old would I have been? 9? Damn, dude.
That's
9
crazy.
years old. Holy
9
shit.
when Mag came out. You were 9 when Mag came out. I was 15 when Halo 3 came out. That's crazy.
Holy fuck.
That's crazy. All right. What's your next one?
My second one is Lair. Remember this one, Brian?
Nice. Yeah. Yes, this was the 6-axis motion control for PS3, flying a dragon.
Just bad, dude. Gimmicky motion controls that had no right to be a thing. Leave that shit to the Wii at the time, brother. Like, you aren't ready. Very highly anticipated. One of the like massive I can't remember if it was a launch title or it was just a big title for PlayStation when the console was coming out, and they were really touting it like as one of the next biggest things, like massive fantasy dragon riding and a lot of enemies on screen at once to murder them all. The motion controls just didn't work. The game just didn't really have many systems in place that were very fleshed out. The story and the characters were just kind of meh.
I've heard I think they patched the game years later to be played without 6-axis, and people have went back and been like, this was a decent game without 6-axis.
Yeah, decent. But the problem is like when you hype up a game, when you have a game like that, you cannot be decent, And if we're going like you said, on disappointing. So
it almost never goes this way. But when you're a launch game, people are looking at you to be a Halo or a Super Mario 64. Yeah. So if you're Lair, you might as well be trash.
Yeah, your games are representative of your console, and I think the proof is in the pudding when it comes to like Xbox nowadays. We always talk about Xbox and Game Pass. Your games are representative of your entire brand. It's not your infrastructure. It's not your service. It's always going to be your games and what people are going to hook to. That's your hook. So if you don't have that, not good.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. This one's kind of a weird poll. Drakengard 3 for the PS3. So the reason I chose this one is because, and some of you will know, maybe most of you probably won't, but Yoko Taro is a well-known game director that did the Drakengard series on the PS1. And the first game came out. It wasn't necessarily a great game, but it had like this meta narrative that made people really love it. Well, then Drakengard 2 was not done by Yoko Taro at all. So it's not considered canon.
Yep.
So he comes back to do Drakengard 3. This is after he did Nier, the first Nier. And Drakengard 3 is a prequel to the first Drakengard. So a prequel to the one of his that actually counts. It's got a completely different art style. It's done by developer Access Games, and I never played it, but it largely, reading the Wikipedia, looking at opinions online, seems like a pretty mixed to negative game. It doesn't really, I don't know. I didn't even know this game existed until I played Nier Automata, because I feel like it came and went without any notice. It just looked old from the day it came out. A lot of people, when Nier Automata came out and people were like, oh, Nier Automata is one of the best games ever, a lot of people were saying, finally Yoko Taro's vision finally met with a studio that can handle his vision when Platinum Games. Drakengard 3, technically in the same universe as Nier Automata, believe it or not. So it's got a lineage to something great, but it's kind of, I could probably ask people if they know what Drakengard 3 is, like out in my street, and I would probably have to be out for hours. I'd be out for hours, and people have no idea. So disappointing. It's the third entry in a series. So, there was definitely some anticipation for it, and I think it's mostly forgotten. So yeah, that's one of my picks. Over to you, Joe.
All right, my third one, and this one's close to home. God of War Ascension.
Okay. I'm so glad we're not picking the same ones as each other so far. God of War Ascension. Now, I want to say, before you say what you're going to say, as far as the original God of War games go, I played the first one for a few hours, and then I bought Ascension day one for $60.
Oof.
Played it for a few hours. Now, to be fair, though, I didn't know Ascension was bad because having only played the first one for a few hours and Ascension for a few hours, I thought, oh, well, they're probably both just great quality, and I just can't get into them. But yeah, over to you, Ascension.
Yeah. I mean, where to start with this game?
It looked cool graphically. I thought the cutscenes were really cool when I started it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, this is the weird thing about like God of War Ascension presentation wise. Like, it has like really crisp graphics, but there's something about the way that game is shaded in the engine that is just ugly. And also, like, it looks worse than God of War 3 in pretty much every area. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it's development time or something, but it just feels like it's an undercooked presentational game that decided to do some cool things with, like, you know, the tech and the scale of everything, just like God of War 3 did, and really push the PS3 to its limits. But ultimately, it's just not a game that, like, looked good in the end in most areas. Like, the pre-done cutscenes were all right, but yeah. I mean, like, even if where do you want to start? Like, talking about the gameplay, like, there's poor combat changes. Like, it went on a parry system in this game massively. It like really put emphasis on the parry system, which was in the older games, but it didn't put as much credence into that when you were in the moment. The other game had a lot more.
I wonder if they were inspired by Souls.
I mean, maybe there's elements of like Ninja Gaiden that has like deflecting and parrying and stuff, so maybe they took a lot from that with Ascension. But there was just no need to change it, and it just felt like you regressed and you also changed it for a gimmick in the combat loop that just didn't need to happen. The story is probably the worst part of it for me, in all honesty. Like, there's bugs as well with like T-posing and A-posing enemies and stuff, which I found quite a lot. I felt like I played the game twice now. I don't think I'll ever play it again, in all honesty. I just cannot bring myself to do it, which is horrible considering God of War is one of my favorite friends. I love the series. I adore it. But I mean, I fell out of the world so many times, dude, on my last playthrough. Like, I fell off, like, there's a big like train section, I think. Like, you're on a moving platform and you have to fight enemies, and I fell off it and died and had to restart the checkpoint. It was horrible. But yeah, the story's just poor. Like, so the story is essentially, it's a prequel to the original God of War, and it's set immediately after Kratos kills his then wife, Lysandra and Calliope, right? And he's imprisoned by the Furies to break him, essentially. He's imprisoned by the Furies, tasked by Ares. So Ares wants to break Kratos even more to make him a servant and to make him like a really good servant to be a God of War, essentially, be a tool. And you break out of the Furies' chains, you kill a couple of them, you go through, you kill them all and stuff. And it just feels like a really weird prequel because you spend so long with Kratos being this like mopey, horrible, like obviously broken man that is more conversational than he is in God of War 1. So they tried to give him more depth. But the issue I have ultimately is that like it doesn't make for a very fun gameplay experience because you're watching a man who is just utterly broken and there's no joy in that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's boring. Like in many ways, like God of War Ascension has likenesses to like The Last of Us Part 2 where Ellie's just moping around and being upset about everything. It's like, I get it. I understand where you're coming from, but this doesn't make for very much entertaining viewing from a story perspective.
How do you feel about Ascension just as a story, as part of the entire God of War? Like, if you take it as a whole, are you like, it's okay, it's fine?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Sorry, go ahead.
So the characters as well are just overall not very interesting. All the enemies, all the Furies are basically just evil for the sake of being evil. Fucking Orkos, who's like a helper in that game, who is a Fury. Or like in this game, he's a Fury. I don't think he is technically a Mythos. He's played by Troy Baker, which is weird, even though he looks nothing like him. The final twist with him, spoilers for this, like going ahead, but you've had years. You have to kill him because you have to break your oath to go after Ares, essentially, to get away from the Furies. Yeah, the characters are boring. It's also, and this is basic, like going on what you said, the narrative is also like too little too late. By the time you appreciate and you take in everything that Ascension has to offer, which is the final game, obviously, before 2018 was released, which soft rebooted the franchise for the better, you've already had God of War 3. Kratos has already killed himself. Obviously, he's still alive. And you know that at the end of God of War 3. His arc is completed. His trauma is ended. Like, in the future, of course, this is obviously way after Ascension happens. And overall, like, none of it really matters because like the murderous arc and the finalized story has already happened, and it does nothing, Ascension, to further give insight into Kratos' mind beyond what Kratos has already experienced and what you've known him to experience, which is in God of War 1 when he kills his wife and kid. It's kind of like, I can't remember exactly the comparative, but there's another film or game that does something very similar to this where, Metal Gear. Prime example. At the end of Metal Gear Solid 3, spoilers if... Can I spoil it for you if you're going to play it, Brian?
I don't care.
Okay.
I'm probably going to look up that stuff before I play it anyways. That's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah, well, spoilers for anyone that hasn't played Metal Gear Solid 3 and obviously the remake that's coming up later this year.
So Wesley needs to skip like a minute ahead.
Yeah, Wesley, if you want to skip, do it now. You kill the boss at the end of the game. And what happens is like, obviously that's the main motivation for why Big Boss becomes like the big antagonist of the entire game, right? And the entire series from then on in the timeline. And the problem is Hideo Kojima carried on making games that would further emphasize and give more details as to why Naked Snake and Big Boss, same person, is evil. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is like the way he is. And ultimately, it was for nothing. And Ascension is very similar to that in the sense that it's just more padding for the sake of more padding. And the entire game feels like that. Yeah. So when you combine God of War 3's ending with the more emotional side of Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta that do wonders for Kratos' character, even though they're spin-off titles, this whole game on its own in comparison to the rest of the timeline just feels useless. And ultimately, you could never play it and you wouldn't need to play it for a story stance. Like, it's just not important. So yeah, bad.
When you very first played it, like, how long into the game before you were like, oh, I think I'm disappointed? Like, did you at least play 5 hours? Like, this is awesome, a new God of War, yay!
I think I liked it for like the first boss fight where you fight I can't remember how you say it. It's a really long word. Hetaconteres or something. Like, it's a big prison basically. You're like on the back of this big like Titan monster. And then after that, it was just kind of like, this is not really clicking with me. Because obviously when you play games, there's like an element of like holding out for the game to click with you, isn't there? Like me with Jedi Survivor, prime example.
I mean, to me, a game that I always put alongside God of War Ascension, because they came out almost the exact same time and they're the same exact type of game, was Gears of War Judgment on the 360.
Yes.
They both came out in 2013. They were both prequels to a trilogy that had ended. And they both just filled up a story, a space of story that didn't need to be told with padding. And I played Judgment all the way to the end, but I drug my feet because it was boring and it was pointless to me.
You know what's crazy? I would also argue that Sony Santa Monica and Epic Games at the time, when they were owned, obviously within Microsoft. Well, it wasn't. It was actually People Can Fly, wasn't it? But anyway, that collective group
collaboration, Epic also did it.
The collective group, like, I would argue that they're in the same kind of situation in terms of the studio hierarchy. Like Naughty Dog, Santa Monica having this, and then Santa Monica having the same issues as like Epic and
Bungie and Epic. Oh, people. Okay, that I thought you were gonna say like Bungie was above them, but okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
totally. But yeah. Okay, so this next one, I love this game. On a subjective level, it's a very strong 8. I feel like I should understand why this game wasn't successful, but I just don't, because I'm like, the premise is so cool. Why didn't it do better? I really hope it comes to the PS5. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
Oh my god, this guy is obsessed with it.
I love this game, dude. So I'm sure most of you know, but like PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale was Sony saying, hey, we're going to make the PlayStation Super Smash Brothers. And they really gave it a really good, earnest try. It is a pretty high quality production, crossover 4-player fighters on stages, just like Super Smash Bros. You got so many iconic PlayStation characters, from Kratos to Nathan Drake to Big Daddy to, Raiden, Ratchet and Clank. Just so many characters. And it was a really, really fun game, and it was pretty well polished. And I played a lot of this game. I loved it so much. I wish they had made more. I can understand what some of so the reason this is on the disappointing list is because it was largely a kind of a failure. People didn't really love it. It didn't sell that well.
Yep.
They immediately decided they weren't going to make any more in this series.
Yep.
And but there's a couple things I can see why it was disappointing. For one, when you play the campaign for this game, the campaign is pretty much exactly the same for every character, except there's like one part at the end where there's like you're in like a blue room and your character has like a different line of dialogue if you played the character. So it's like very low budget kind of ambition on the single player front. And then some of their choices with the roster was weird. Like you had the obvious picks that were like, oh, of course, Kratos, Nathan Drake, all that stuff. But like you had characters like, okay, you had Big Daddy, which is a third party character, but his stage was BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
Which was weird.
Yeah.
Then you had like glaring omissions like Crash Bandicoot, obviously because owned by Activision at the time.
Yep.
But still, they were able to get third party characters, so it was like, okay, well, we need to have where's Crash, where's Spyro?
Yeah.
Once again, Activision. So weird omissions. Then there was characters that were included that people like were like, I know Nintendo does this too with Super Smash Bros, but Nintendo's just built different. But like Fat Princess, nobody wanted to play as Fat Princess. But they had like what's the Warhawk? They had like the main character from Warhawk is like a DLC character, and like so. Kind of weird stages.
They didn't have Solid Snake in there, right? Because that's why they had Raiden.
That's why they had Raiden because
Smash had Solid Snake,
Smash
so they probably couldn't get it across. Yeah,
exactly. And then so all of those things are like contributing factors to why there's a problem with this game. But the number one issue to why this game was probably a failure is how they decided to differentiate it from Super Smash Bros. This was essentially a PlayStation copy of Super Smash Bros. In every way but one. And the one way they chose to differentiate, I can see how they thought it was neat, but it was just a failure of this game. There is no way to defeat your enemy by throwing them out of the stage like Super Smash Bros. There's literally no way. You could punch on a character. I could set my controller down and Joe could punch me for 5 years and he would never win. Every character has their own special move ability. And the goal of the game is to trigger your special move and then make sure you land it on a character. If you land the special move on the character, they die.
Yeah.
So the whole entire game just revolves around getting your special to pop up and then making sure you land it on someone. And that's just, it's not fun for two reasons. One, it's extremely limiting. It doesn't matter how much you're kicking the person's ass. If you don't land the special, they're not going to lose.
Yep.
And two, it just, a lot of times it came down to when I was playing with my friends, what it ended up was like, oh, that dude's got a special. I'm going to run away and I'm going to jump and I'm going to run away and I'm going to jump. And then eventually they would use it. And a lot of times because I'm running and jumping, they would miss.
Yeah.
And then I would get my special and then they'd run away and jump and miss. And that's not how you want to play these games. That's not fun. You want to be like at each other and try to knock it off stage. So that was where it was a big fail. But I still love this game. I would play it right now if it was on the PS5. I love it. Did you like this game at all, Joe?
I think I only played it for like 5 minutes around a buddy's house.
So you probably didn't like it then.
I didn't mind it. It's just it never grabbed me. And
what a cool
in all honesty,
premise.
oh yeah, 100%. Like definitely.
I mean, Kratos' level had like I don't know if it was Hades or whoever.
It had a Leviathan. It had the Leviathan, I think, from God of War 1.
Maybe he had 2 levels because he had a mission with the guy from God of War 3 with the chains and the big helmet.
Hades. Yeah, Hades. Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I've seen it now.
I always played as Jack and Daxter. That's what I played as.
Yeah. But yeah, I just was never like a Super Smash Bros. Guy. Like I got the
that makes sense.
I've had Brawl. Is Brawl like technically the worst Super Smash Bros?
Most people see it as that, yeah.
Yeah, because is that the one with the weird dodging mechanic?
I think so, and the tripping.
Yeah, the tripping. And then I played Ultimate. I really enjoyed Ultimate, but I just don't really get into it because they don't hold my attention that long.
This is even. I mean, to be fair, this is that but worse.
Yeah.
So
I mean, in many ways, like fighting games are my online PvP shooters for you. You know what I'm saying? Like they just don't do it. So.
Fun for a little bit, and you're bored of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great pick.
And Bluepoint also assisted in development on this, which Bluepoint's known as like a great studio for remakes,
re-releasing and remaking. Yeah.
This was also on the Vita, so if you have a Vita, you could play this. It was you buy it on one system, you get on the other. So, but yeah, it was a big disappointment and largely kind of a failure, even though I love it. So yeah, over to you, Joe. How many more do you got?
I've only got 2.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll keep it succinct. So the next one, my number 4, is Ratchet & Clank Full Frontal Assault, and the reason why I picked this is because
okay. I had 2 backup Ratchet and Clanks that I thought were fails, but it wasn't that one. But I don't know Ratchet as well as you, so tell us about it.
So this game to me is like representative of what went wrong with Ratchet and Clank overall for me. Like,
is this the first PS3 one or second or third? Or what is it?
this was one, I don't know which one it was, but it was
Frontal Assault.
for the 10th anniversary. It wasn't directly developed by Insomniac Core. It was developed by Insomniac North Carolina, their studio. But yeah, this game was representative to me of basically Ratchet falling by the wayside as they kind of like cross-developed games with like Resistance and stuff. It has a really simplified video game formula that basically is truncated and it truncates everything that made the previous installments so special, with like the combining of like loads of different weapons on the weapon wheel, and like just the exploration and the platforming and stuff. And this game just like basically, for me on the PS3 generation, like put the final nail in the coffin. Admittedly, this was a spin-off title. It was also meant to come to PS Vita, which was developed not by Insomnia but by Tin Giant later on. But the craziest thing about this game to me was that it was like made as the 10th anniversary game for the series, but it was a spin-off tower defense mini game, like collection of mini game scenarios. That the only saving grace about it was honestly that like it was co-op, and as we all know, like if a game has to be good because like by playing it co-op, then the game even good like on its own? Like, is it a good game? And I remember playing it with like a couple of buddies and like enjoying it, but every time I played it on my own, I just felt like, is this really where the franchise is going? Like, and obviously I didn't at the time, I didn't know like the North Carolinian studio was like developing it. And I didn't know the core studio was working on Resistance 3, because they were like all in on Resistance 3, because Resistance 2, while did well, it wasn't like a fan favorite like Fall of Man was. So 3 kind of reclaimed the series. And
even though it didn't sell like it should have.
No. And yeah, so it was just weird, dude. It was just fucking weird. And
I think I meant to pick this game because like I'm not going to use them. I'm just going to throw this in here. My 2 of my backup picks were Ratchet and Clank All for One.
Yeah.
And Ratchet and Clank Quest for Booty.
Yeah.
Which are like spin-off titles that really didn't give fans what they were looking for.
To be honest, a lot of even the mainline PS3 Ratchet games weren't amazing.
Okay.
Like, they were good. They were better than these, obviously.
I thought I always heard like Tools of Destruction was really good, but maybe not.
Maybe. I can't really remember. They all blur into one. But yeah, so that's my number 4. It was just like this, what the fuck is going on? I think the worst part about it was that it was a 10th anniversary special, and it clearly felt like it was a PS Vita game made on the PS3. You know?
Yeah, so. That would be sad. Okay, this is my last one, and then it'll be over to you, and you have one more, right?
Yep.
This is once again, and falling in line with more disappointing than like bad. The reboot of Twisted Metal in 2012.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I remember being excited. I'd never bought it, but I was excited for this. I thought I was going to buy it leading up to launch, because I was like, oh, Twisted Metal was like this really iconic series in the PS1 that I kind of missed out on. I think I rented it when I was a kid, but like I never really got into it. I was like, oh, David Jaffe's back as the director. You know, this is Twisted Metal reboot. Like, they're going to nail it. This is PS3. Like, they're the company that's putting out like Uncharted and stuff.
Yep.
And it kind of came out, and it kind of just signed, sealed, and delivered the fate of Twisted Metal as a game series, which is like, people don't really care about this anymore. It's kind of like a thing of a bygone era. I'm not saying it couldn't come back in a big way. It just hasn't. And after this, I think, David Jaffe kind of went off and did some like Drawn to Death or whatever the other game was. He
Drawn
did.
to Death, I think it was. Yeah.
And then he kind of like left development, and he kind of does what he does now with his content creation. But this was kind of like the last like stab at like a genuine AAA Twisted Metal game. And it largely just kind of came out and didn't have a lot of fanfare and kind of just faded away, and it didn't reignite the series at all. So
yeah,
unfortunate for such an iconic series. Now it's more iconic for the TV show on Peacock, probably, which is crazy.
Dude, Twisted Metal is a series I'd never got into. I've never played a single one. Like,
I played. It was one of the. I think it was either the first or the second on the PS1. It was fun. It just crashing cars around and stuff. But it was just kind of like it sucks that like that was 12 years ago now, and it was a soft reboot that did, or just reboot straight up that just didn't do anything. It was developed by Eat Sleep Play, which was like a new studio that Jaffe had started up. So
just didn't click.
Yep. So that's my last one.
Yeah, my last one is probably a game. Obviously, you'd have heard of the series, but you would have probably never played it, Brian. SOCOM 4, U.S. Navy SEALs.
Oh, I call it SOCOM. Okay.
SOCOM, yeah. SOCOM.
Okay, are you saying it right, or I mean,
it is American. It is American,
Okay.
so maybe you.
Okay. Yeah. What was
SOCOM,
it?
yeah.
One of these games. One of the games I brought up. They had developed a bunch of SOCOM games. I can't remember
Yeah,
which game it was.
Zipper Interactive. They
Okay.
did Mag. Yeah, same
Okay.
people.
Mag, yeah.
SOCOM came out a year after Mag, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So for people that don't know what SOCOM is, essentially it was like this cooperative online. It was cooperative, tactical console. It was if anyone's played like Armor on PC, which is like a milsim game, SOCOM was basically like a very like consoleized light version of it, but it was so cool. Like it was third person, and it like put emphasis on like tactics play and squad play and stuff to, take down certain elements on the map. And a lot of them, as far as I'm aware, I played 2 and 3. I've never played 1, but 2 and 3 I really loved. It was very open. There was big open maps, and you could get in vehicles and stuff and approach your objective however you like. It was so fucking cool. SOCOM 4 came out in 2011, and it came out, and SOCOM is very big in multiplayer. People love it for the multiplayer. Like they get together and they used to play it and really plan everything and coordinate and stuff. And that was probably more popular than the single player, even though the single player was really good. And the PSN network got hacked for months, Brian. Months.
I remember.
And obviously that's not like at the fault of Zipper, but like they timed it perfectly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was dead. The game online was dead. One of the major focal points of SOCOM was completely dead. It was like it's the equivalency of like Halo 3 coming out and just being like, well, I can't play online. Shit. Like, what do we do?
And it's never going to be the same, even if it comes back, even if it's a great game. You know?
Yeah. And while it had like a decent single player campaign, it just completely like fumbled the bag in other areas, like not appealing to the hardcore fan base. It casualized a lot of elements, like making a lot of over the shoulder camera angles, which was just not needed. There was like kind of like a soft, weird cover system that was aping Gears of War at the time, because that was like the new hot shit with like the Gears trilogy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just went very run and gun as well. It became a lot more casualized, lot less emphasis on planning with your AI teammates, or if you could get into the multiplayer once the servers were back online, with your friends, your squad mates. And it led to just like an overall poor video game on sales. It was the worst selling SOCOM game of all time. Not that they ever sold massive, but they were enough to keep them like going and profitable and stuff at the time when AAA development wasn't so ballooned. And it actually ended up Zipper closing. Like they released Unit 13 on the Vita a year later, but after that they were done. They were shuttered. And the craziest thing about it is Zipper was a pretty adaptable studio. Like they made Mech Warrior 3, and that was a pretty fucking good game. And also like shit like Crimson Skies, if you've heard of that game, Brian.
On the Xbox. Came with the headset.
The
live headset.
So like, and they were always trying to like push the boat out with various games and dipping into different series and stuff, and they were very adaptable. But this was the final nail in the coffin, and in many ways, I think this is one of the few times where I actually blame Sony for like fucking up massively, because the multiplayer is obviously what killed that game's sales.
Yeah.
So yeah, wow. There you go.
Yeah, I think we had a pretty great list of disappointing and bad games. I think actually mostly we just kind of went more disappointing than bad across the board.
Yeah, 100%.
And we had a good mixture of games, and we didn't really, neither of us kind of took the same one the other person had. PS3, it was such a weird time in PlayStation's history. It's weird because it's like PS3 is obviously the sore spot for Sony, but like if you look at it, it's still like a banging awesome like system with games.
I think if you were to buy a PS3 now and retroactively play all those titles, obviously for single player purposes, because I think a lot of those games won't. Obviously, a lot of them won't have the service still online for the multiplayer. But if you got that console and you played like the classic games on there, there's so much good stuff there, dude. Like, seriously.
Like there's like the high tier obvious good stuff like Uncharted, but then you got like a lot of lost, like smaller stuff that's like also really good. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Sweet. Guys. So that is another episode of Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast. We talked about Concord at length. We talked about the games we're playing and some of the most disappointing PS3 exclusives. Guys, if you want to support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/criticalframes. And for only $5, there's only one tier there. You can be a all access member, which gets you Discord perks and an extra episode every month of Critical Frames Plus. We just put up a Last of Us Part 1 episode talking about our love for The Last of Us. There's also having your name shouted out at the end of the episode. Lots of good stuff there if you want to support us there, but we just thank you for listening and appreciate it. If you want to send a voice clip or an email, you can send that to criticalframes@gmail.com. Come join our Discord. Everybody is welcome. We are at Critical Frames on Twitter. That is run by our friend Wesley. He does a great job over there. Check it out. This has been an awesome episode. Do you have any final thoughts, Joe, before we get out of here?
Nope. I'm going to go eat dinner. I'm going to edit this podcast, get it all out there for you guys on Friday. Yeah. Probably Friday when it'll go out. And I'm going to go play Concord open beta. Give the game some more time. It deserves it.
Yep.
And I'll report back next week after the beta is closed on what I finally feel about the game and whether I'm going to play it.
Yeah. I'm planning to jump in as well if I get time tonight. If I don't tonight, I'll play tomorrow. I know that after this, I pretty much got to go soak in family mode because I've been locked up in the room recording. But play some Concord, play some more Ghost of Tsushima, get through work tomorrow so I can have the weekend off and relax. I'm excited about it. I'm glad we got this episode under our belt. So I'm starting to feel like I need to drink. Like my voice is starting to get like, we've been talking
one
for
of
a long
these,
time,
bro.
so.
You need a big tankard.
Is that just water?
Just water.
Man, I was hoping you were saying it was like vodka or something. Though I'd be able to tell if it was vodka. So the way you reacted. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast. We loved having you here, and we will see you next week. Peace, guys. Thank you.
Peace. Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast, is created in partnership between Bryan Arvett and myself, Joseph Smalley. It's available on all mainstream audio and video feeds, and all music featured in the show is by Caleb Webster. We're incredibly grateful to the following All Access Pass patrons for the support they've shown for this independent venture: Darren.jpg, Diente D. Hombre, MusicTree23, Trickster, and Wesley Types.
PlayStation.